Well, hello, everyone. Good evening and a very happy Monday to you. I know, it's Monday, it's not Tuesday. Storytime Tuesday had to move to Monday this week because, well, my daughter flies home from Costa Rica tomorrow, and, well, she kind of wanted to be picked up at the airport. It's the little things in life, right? So because she wanted to be picked up at the airport and wanted to come home, and my wife would like her to safely come home, tonight becomes Storytime Monday. And it's okay. It is the way that it works sometimes. We're nothing if not flexible, right? So tonight, we will be finishing Split Infinity. Got a couple of chapters left. Let's talk a little bit about what happened the last time. It's been 2 weeks. I was on vacation last week. So unfortunately, that meant you guys had to miss a session of Split Infinity, which is why we'll finish it tonight. So last time around, Stile returned to Proton. He competed in the first couple of rounds of the tournament. And his last thing here was doing a marathon against Hulk. And he managed to win through despite some things that Hulk was doing. There had been some construction on the track and a low oxygen zone. Hulk knew about it. Stile did not. And almost knocked Stile out because of it. But the self-willed robots helped him out, did the right things, got him some oxygen so that way he made it on through. And he has offered to show Hulk to Proton or to Phaze rather than making him leave the planet with not making it to the tournament. So it should be interesting. That's right. We're not quite to the tournament yet. We're almost there. Stile has been working to qualify for the tournament, but has not actually qualified yet. He is in place number 6. He needs to make it up to place number 5. I get the feeling we're going to get there tonight. But he is back in Proton in Phaze right now because he needs to save his friends from the yellow Adept. And so, sit back, everyone. Relax and prepare to enjoy as we dive into the finale of Split Infinity, starting with Chapter 16. I hope you guys enjoy. As always, if you have questions, comments, you want to engage, I will engage between the chapters. I record all of these. They all go up onto my YouTube channel once it is done, so you are welcome to go there and check out the previous chapters, youtube.com/@SirArminius. All the previous chapters, and the chapters from this will go up there as well after the stream tonight. So enjoy, everyone, and please feel free to engage as the evening goes on, and I will be happy to engage back with you guys in between chapters. Here we go. Chapter 16. Blue. Stile emerged, as planned, just beyond the yellow fog that demarked the yellow demesne. He could not, per his agreement, end the curse Yellow had set against his return, enter that for himself, but he shouldn't need to. He set down the cage containing the owl and donned his clothing. In the pockets were a folded null-weight wetsuit and a metal saw, the one to protect against thrown potions, the other to sever the cage bars. He hoped Kurlgeir or Nasa would have the common sense to saw out a bar section and use it as a lever to break the locks of the other cages. If they didn't, or if anything else went wrong. Stile stifled that thought. He had to free his friends, one way or another. If he could not do it harmlessly, he would have to make arrangements to destroy the Yellow Adept, and he did not want to do that. She was not really a bad witch. He stretched the pliant wetsuit into a cord and knotted it around the saw. He brought the owl out. "All right, owl. One service for me, and you are free in this world, never again to serve man or to be caged." This was a modified owl, of high intelligence for its kind. It understood him. "Take this and drop it in the cauldron inside the yellow house." Stile presented the package of dry ice. "Take this and drop it in the unicorn's cage." He gave the bird the wetsuit saw knot. The owl blinked dubiously. "Oh, you don't know what a unicorn is? Like a horse with a horn." The owl was reassured. "Then wing out of here, and out there quickly. You will be free, and if you should ever need me, let me know, and I'll help you." The owl took a package in each claw, spread its wings, and launched into the sky. "And don't let any liquid touch you! There!" Stile called after it. He watched it go, hoping for the best. This was a jury-rigged effort, the best he could think of under the pressures of the moment. He wasn't sure what proton artifacts would operate in phase, so was keeping it as simple as possible. He was in luck. Soon he heard a scream from the witch. That would be the dry ice in the cauldron, making it bubble and steam through no agency of the adept, interfering with the potion's effectiveness and releasing the owl from its spell, as well as distracting Yellow. Next could come the delivery of the suit and saw. After that, with luck, hell would break loose. He waited nervously. So many things could go wrong. Then he heard the trumpeting of Darling Corey the pink elephant, and an increasing commotion among the captives. It grew into a considerable din, with bangings and crashes. Then at last shapes moved through the fog. A unicorn galloped toward Stile. It was Nasa, and she had a rider. Kurlgeir in man form. They arrived, and the werewolf dismounted. "My thanks to thee, fair mare. At such time as I may, I will return the favor." Then he handed the sword to Stile and changed back into wolf form. Stile stood for a moment, assimilating this. Why hadn't the werewolf simply run as a wolf, instead of performing the awkward, for him, feat of riding the unicorn? To carry the rapier that he would otherwise have had to leave behind. His own clothing transformed with him, but the sword was foreign. He had wanted to return it to Stile. Why had Nasa tolerated this strange rider? Because she too had felt the need to return the sword. Yet it was no special weapon. It was a gift of her brother, belonging now to Stile. That was its only distinction. So they had both done it for him. Or so his present logic suggested. He was touched. "I thank you both, but I'm chiefly glad you were both free without injury." Kurlgeir made a growl, and Nasa a note of assent. Neither was talking much, it seemed. Was this because they had not liked the necessity of working so closely together, or because they had liked it? That could be a serious complication for hereditary enemies. The Yellow Adept. Was she hurt? Kurlgeir changed back to man form. "The witch brought me forth from my cage, fathoming my disguise," he said. "She claimed thou hadst sent her to me." And I, knowing not whether she spoke truth or lie, had to play along with her until I knew thy fate, intending to kill her if she had done thee harm. But she showed me thy prince going through the curtain, and told me how thou wouldst try to rescue us from afar, and said she would lay no traps against thee if I— "Yellowette is some fair witch," Stile said. "I have been long absent from my were-bitch," Kurlgeir agreed. "Yellow performs her business, as do we all. But ere she moved me, the potion wore off." He shrugged. "So I returned to my cage to await thine effort. I could not flee in wolf form because her summoning potion would have brought me back, and my man form no longer wished to slay her." "I believe she was willing to let you go," Stile said. "But to save face, she could not do it until I launched mine effort. I suspect I owe her a favor." "It seems some adepts are people too," Kurlgeir agreed grudgingly. "No animal harmed Yellow in the escape. They merely fled in different directions, and we too came here as soon as we winded thee." He returned to lupine form. "Yellow told me who I am," Stile said. The eyes of Wolf and Unicorn abruptly fixed on him. "I am the Blue Adept." Stile paused, but neither gave any sign, positive or negative. "I know neither of you approve, but I am what I am. My alternate self was blue, and I must know myself, as the Oracle said. I must go and set things straight at the Blue Demesne." Still they waited, not giving him any encouragement. "I have freed you both from Yellow as I had to," Stile continued. "I could not leave you in her clutches after both of you got there because of me. But now that I know who I am, I cannot ask either of you to help. I am the one that thou, Kurlgeir, mayst not." The wolf shifted back into the man. "Too late, friend. I was lost when I met thee, knowing it not. The Oracle alone knew, when it told me to cultivate blue. I ask no favor of thee, but I will help thee investigate thine own situation. Perchance that which slew thine other self now lurks for thee at the Blue Demesne, and a lupine nose will sniff it out in time." "I thank thee, werewolf. Yet will I do no magic, so cannot assist thee in thine own concern. It is a one-sided favor thou dost." But Kurlgeir had already reverted to wolf form. "And thee, Nasa," Stile continued. "Aye." The unicorn made a musical blast of negation. She gestured marginally with her nose, indicating that he should mount. Relieved, Stile did so. He remained tired from the marathon, and it was a great comfort to be on Nasa again. Now he could relax, for a little while, recovering from that grueling run. He needed about 2 days off his feet to recuperate, but the time simply wasn't there. If he delayed his approach to the Blue Demesne, Yellow might spread the word, and whatever lurked there would be thoroughly prepared for his arrival. He had to get there first. Should he ask for another sniff of wolfsbane? No. That magic might not work for him as well a second time, and in any event he preferred to ride out his problems with his own strength, not leaning on magic too often. Stile did not know where the Blue Demesne was, but Kurlgeir did. He led Nasa eastward at a fast clip. They moved back along the route they had originally come, through forest and fields and badlands, hardly pausing for rest or food. Stile explained along the way about his need to report back to Proton on the morrow, so the two creatures were determined to get him where he was going before he had to return to Proton. Kurlgeir did not pause to hunt, and Nasa never grazed despite Stile's urgings. At length, they passed the place where he had tamed the unicorn, the start of that wild ride. So short, and yet so long a time ago. They proceeded without pause to the castle Stile had first seen from his survey from the tall tree, back virtually to his starting point, had he but known. Dawn was breaking in its unmitigated splendor as they approached the castle. Stile, asleep on Nasa, had missed the pretty moon risings and settings of the night. He squinted at the castle blearily. He had barely 4 hours left before his match for rung 5 in Proton, and he hadn't even settled the situation in Phaze yet. If only blue hadn't been so far from yellow. Stile had slept, but it seemed the tensions of his mission had prevented him from unwinding properly. If the Blue Adept had really been murdered, who had done the deed? If Blue's magic had not saved him, how could Stile survive without the aid of magic? Yet this was the way it had to be. Even if magic had been permitted him, he would not be prepared with suitable verses. Yet he still had to check this castle out, to know, finally, exactly what his situation was. Whatever it might be, whatever it might cost him, the Oracle had told him to know himself, and he believed it was good advice. The environs of the Blue Domain were surprisingly pleasant. There was no black fog or yellow fog, not even any blue fog, just the pure blue sky, and a lovely blue lake, and fields of bluebells, and blue gentians, and bluegrass. To Stile's eye, this was the most pleasant of places, not at all like the lair of an adept. Still, he could not afford to be deceived by superficialities. "I think it would be best to enter in disguise, as before," Stile said. The animals agreed. This time Stile donned Nasa's socks, while Kurlgeir assumed man form. Then the seeming man led the 2 seeming unicorns up to the castle gate. The drawbridge was down across the small moat, and the gate stood open. An armed human guard strode forward, but his hand was not near his sword. He was, of course, garbed in blue. "What can I do for thee, man?" he inquired of Kurlgeir. "We come to see the Blue Adept," the werewolf said. "Thine animals are ill?" Surprised, Kurlgeir improvised. "One has bad knees." "We see not many unicorns here," the guard observed, "but surely the Lady Blue can handle it. Come into the courtyard." Stile was startled. This was the first he had heard of a Lady Blue. How could she be the adept if the original had been a man and was now dead? Unless she had been his wife. This complicated the picture considerably. "But we wish to see the adept himself," the werewolf protested. "If thou art dying, thou seest the adept," the guard said firmly. "If thine animal hath bad knees, thou seest the lady." Kurlgeir yielded. He led his animals through the gate, along the broad front passage, and into the central court. This was similar to one of the courts of the palace of the Oracle, but smaller. It was dominated by a beautiful blue-blossomed jacardana tree in the center. Beneath the tree was a deep blue pond fed by a rivulet from a fountain in the shape of a small blue whale that overhung one side. The Blue Adept evidently liked nature in all its forms, especially its blue forms. Stile found his taste similar. There were several other animals in the yard. a lame jackrabbit, a snake with its tail squished, and a partly melted snow monster. Mesa eyed the last nervously, but the monster was not seeking any trouble with any other creature. A maidservant entered the yard wearing a blue print summer dress. "The lady will be with thee soon," she said to Kurlgeir, "unless thou art in immediate pain." "No pressing pain," the werewolf said. He was as evidently perplexed as Stile by all of this. Where was the foul nature an adept was supposed to have? If the blue adept were dead, where was the grief and ravage? They might have had to fight their way into the castle. Instead, it was completely open and serene. The girl picked up the snake carefully and carried it into the castle proper. What was this? Stile wondered. An infirmary? Certainly it was a far cry from the black or yellow demesne in more than physical distance. Where was the catch? The girl came for the rabbit. The snake had not reappeared. Was it healed or dead? Why did the animals trust themselves to this castle? Considering the reputation of adepts, these creatures should have stayed well clear. Now another woman emerged. She wore a simple gown of blue, with blue slippers and a blue kerchief tying back her fair hair. She was well proportioned, but not spectacular in face or figure. She went directly to the snow monster. "For thee, a freeze potion," she said. "A simple matter." She opened a vial and sprinkled its contents on the monster. Immediately the melt disappeared. "But get thee safely back to thy mountain fastness. The lowlands are not safe for the likes of thee." She admonished it with a smile that illuminated her face momentarily, as if a cloud had passed from the face of the sun. "And seek thee no further quarrel with fire-breathing dragons." The creature nodded and shuffled out. Now the woman turned to Kurlgeir. Stile was glad he was in disguise. That daylight smile had shaken him. The woman had seemed comely but ordinary until that smile. If there were evil in this creature, it was extraordinarily well hidden. "We see not many unicorns here, sir," she said, echoing the sentiment of the guard at the gate. Stile was startled by the appellation, normally applied only to a citizen of Proton. But this was not Proton. "Which one has the injured knees?" The werewolf hesitated. Stile knew his problem and stepped in. The unicorn costume was for sight only. Any touch would betray the humanness of the actual body. "I am the one with the knees," he said. "I am a man in unicorn disguise." The lady turned her gaze on him. Her eyes were blue, of course, and very fine, but her mouth turned grim. "We serve not men here now. Why dost thou practice this deceit?" "I must see the blue adept," Stile said. "Adepts have not been hospitable to me ere now. I prefer to be anonymous." "Thou soundest strangely familiar." She halted. "Nay, that cannot be. Come, I will examine thy knees, but I can promise nothing." "I only want to see the adept," Stile protested. But she was already kneeling before him, finding his legs through the unicorn illusion. He stood there, helpless, letting her slide her fingers over his boots and socks and up under his trouser legs, finding his calves and then at last his knees. Her touch was delicate and highly pleasant. The warmth of it infused his knees like the field of a microwave therapy machine. But this was no machine. It was wonderfully alive. He had never before experienced such a healing touch. Stile looked down and met the lady's gaze, and something in him ignited. A flame kindled in dry tinder. This was the woman his alternate self had married. "I feel the latent pain therein," the Lady Blue said, "but it is beyond my means to heal." "The Adept can use magic," Stile said, "except that the Blue Adept was dead. Wasn't he?" "The Adept is indisposed," she said firmly. She released his knees and stood with an easy motion. She was marvelously lithe, though there were worry lines about her mouth and eyes. She was a lovely and talented woman, under great strain. How lovely and how talented and under how much strain he was now coming to appreciate by great jackrabbit bounds. Stile believed he knew what the nature of that strain might be. Kurlgeir and Nasa were standing by, awaiting Stile's decision. He made it. He bent carefully to draw off the unicorn socks, revealing himself undisguised. "Woman, look at me," he said. The Lady Blue looked. She paled, stepping back. "Why comest thou like this in costume, foul spirit?" she demanded. "Have I not covered assiduously for thee, who deservest it least?" Stile was taken aback. He had anticipated gladness, disbelief, or fear, depending on whether she took him for her husband, an illusion, or a ghost. But this, "Though it be strange," the lady murmured in an aside to herself, "thy knees seemed flesh, not wood, and there was pain in them. Am I now being deluded by semblance spells?" Stile looked at the werewolf. "Does this make any sense to thee? Why should my knees not be flesh? Who would have wooden knees?" "A golem!" Kurlgeir exclaimed, catching on. "A wooden golem masquerading as the Adept. But why does she cover for the soulless one?" The lady whirled on the werewolf. "Why cover for thy henchmen?" she exclaimed, her pale cheeks flushing now in anger. "Should I let the world know my love is dead, most foully murdered, and a monster put in his place? And let all the good works my lord achieved fall into ruin? Nay, I needs must salvage what I can, holding the vultures somewhat at bay, lest there be no longer any reprieve or hope for those in need. I needs must sustain at least the image of my beloved for these creatures, lest that they suffer not the horror I know." She returned to bear on Stile, regal in her wrath. "But thou fiend, thou creature of spite, thou damned thing, play not these gruesome games with me, lest in mine agony I forget my nature and ideals, and turn at last on thee and rend thee limb from limb, and cut out from thy charred bosom the dead toad that is thy heart." And she whirled and stalked into the building. Stile stared after her, bathed in the heat of her fury. "There is a woman," he breathed raptly. Nasa turned her head to look at him, but Stile was hardly aware of the import of her thought. The Lady Blue, protecting her enemy from exposure, for the sake of the good work done by the former Blue Adept. Oh, what a wrong to be righted! "I must slay that golem," Stile said. Kurlgeir nodded. "What must be, must be." He shifted to wolf form and sniffed the air. Then he led the way into the castle. Stile followed, but Nasa remained in the courtyard. She had run almost without surcease for a day and night carrying him, and her body was so tired and hot she could scarce restrain the flames of her breath. Kurlgeir, unfettered, had fared better, but Nasa needed time for herself to recover. No one sought to stop them from entering the castle proper. The guard at the gate had been the only armed man they encountered, and he was back at his station. There were a few household servants, going innocently about their business. There was none of the grimness associated with the demeans of the other adepts he had encountered. This was an open castle. The wolf followed his nose through clean halls and apertures until they arrived at a closed door. Kurlgeir growled. The golem was here. "Very well, werewolf," Stile said. "This needs must be my battle. Go thou elsewhere." Kurlgeir, understanding, disappeared. Stile considered momentarily, then decided on the forthright approach. He knocked. There was, as he expected, no answer. Stile did not know much about golems, but did not expect much from a construct of inanimate materials. Yet, he reminded himself, that was what the robot Sheen was. So he had to be careful not to underestimate this thing. He did not know the limits of magical animation. "Golem!" he called. "Answer, or I come in regardless. Thine impersonation is at an end." Then the door opened. A man stood there, garbed in blue robe and blue boots. He was, Stile realized, the exact image of Stile himself. His clothing differed in detail, but a third party would not know the two of them apart. "Begone, intruder, lest I enchant thee into a worm and crush thee under heel," the golem said. So, golems could talk. Good enough. Stile drew his rapier, for this had werewolf and unicorn labored so diligently to return his weapon to him. "Perform thy magic quickly, then, impostor," he said, striding forward. The golem was unarmed. Realizing this, Stile hesitated before attacking. "Take a weapon," he said. I know thou canst not enchant me. Dost thou not recognize me, thou lifeless stick?" The golem studied Stile. The creature was evidently not too bright. Unsurprising if its brains were cellulose, but slowly Stile's aspect penetrated. "Thou art dead," the golem exclaimed. Stile menaced him with the sword. "Thou art dead, not I." The golem kicked at him suddenly. Its move was almost untelegraphed, but Stile was not to be caught off guard in a situation like this. He swayed aside and clubbed the creature on the ear with his left fist. Pain lanced through his hand. It was like striking a block of wood, as he should have known. This was a literal blockhead. While he paused, shaking his hand, the golem turned and butted him in the chest. Stile braced himself just in time, but he felt dull pain, as of a rib being bent or cartilage torn. The golem bowled on, shoving Stile against the wall, trying to grab him with hideously strong arms. Stile knew already that he could not match the thing's power. Unarmed? The golem needed no overt weapon. Its body was wood. Stile got his sword oriented and stabbed the torso. Sure enough, the point lodged, not penetrating. This thing was not vulnerable to steel. Now he knew what he was up against. Stile hauled up one of his feet and got his knee into the golem's body as it tried to butt again. His knee hurt as he bent it, but he shoved the creature away. The golem crashed against the far wall, its head striking with a sharp crack. But it was the wall that fractured, not the head. Stile took a shallow breath, feeling his chest injury, and looked around. Kurlgeir was back, standing in the doorway, growling off other intruders. This would remain Stile's own personal fight, like a game in the Proton frame. All he had to do was destroy this undead wooden dummy. Before it battered him into the very state of demise he was supposedly already in. He no longer had qualms about attacking an unarmed creature. He studied the golem. The creature might be made of wood, animated by magic, but it still had to obey certain basic laws of physics. It had to have joints in its limbs, and would be vulnerable in those joints, even as Stile was. It had to hear and see, so needed eyes and ears, though these would probably function only via magic. Whoever had made this golem must have a real knack for this kind of sorcery. Another adept, most likely, specializing in golems. The golem came, and Stile plunged the point of his rapier like a hypodermic into the thing's right eye. The golem, evidently feeling no pain, continued forward, only twisting its head. The sword point, lodged in the wood, was wrenched about. It snapped off. Stile had not been an expert with this weapon, so this was less of a loss than it might have seemed. He aimed the broken end at the golem's other eye, but the creature, aware of the danger, retreated. It turned and crashed through the window in the far wall. Stile pursued it. He leaped through the broken window and found himself back in the courtyard, where Nasa had been pacing restlessly, breathing out her heat. She paused, startled at the appearance of the golem. Her eyes informed her it was Stile, with one eye destroyed, but her nose was more certain. She made an angry musical snort. The golem cast about with its remaining eye. It spied the fountain whale. It grabbed the statuary in both arms and ripped it from its mooring. Nasa, alarmed, charged across the courtyard, her horn aimed at the golem. "Don't stab it!" Stile cried. "The thing is wood. It could break thy horn." As he spoke, the golem heaved the whale at him. The statue was solid. It flew like a boulder. Nasa leaped at Stile, nosing him out of the way. The thing landed at her feet, fragmenting. "Art thou all right, Nasa?" Stile cried, trying to get to his feet without bending his knees too far. She gave a musical blast of alarm. Stile whirled. The golem was bearing down on him with a whale fragment, about to pulp his head. Nasa lifted her head and snorted a jet of flame that would have done credit to a small dragon. It passed over Stile and scored on the golem. Suddenly, the golem was on fire. Its wood was dry, well seasoned, and filled with pitch. It burned vigorously. The creature dropped the whale fragment and ran madly in a circle, trying to escape its torment. Blows and punctures might not bother it, but fire was the golem's ultimate nemesis. Stile stared for a moment, amazed at this apparition. Himself on fire. The golem's substance cracked. Smoke trailed from it, forming a torus as the creature continued around its awful circle. And Stile, so recently out to destroy this thing, experienced sudden empathy with it. He could not let it be tortured in this fashion. He tried to quell his human softness, knowing the golem was a literally heartless, unliving thing. But he could not. The golem was now the underdog, worse off than Stile himself. "The water!" Stile cried. "Jump in the pond! Douse the fire!" The golem paused, flame jetting out of its punctured eye to form a momentary halo. Then it lurched for the pool, stumbled, and splashed in. There was a hiss and a spurt of steam. Stile saw Nasa and Curlgeyer and the Lady Blue standing spaced about the courtyard, watching. He went to the pond and kneeled, carefully. The golem floated face down, its fire out. Probably it didn't need to breathe. Still. Stile reached out and caught a foot. He hauled it in, then wrestled the body out of the pond. But the golem was defunct. Whether from the fire or the water, Stile could not tell. It no longer resembled him, other than in outline. Its clothing was gone, its painted skin scorched, its head a bald mass of charcoal. "I did not mean for it to end this way," Stile said soberly. "I suppose thou wast only doing thy job, golem, what thou wert fashioned for, like a robot. I will bury thee." The gate guard appeared. He looked at the scene, startled. "Who is master now?" Startled in turn, Stile realized that he should be the master, having deposed the imposter. But he knew things weren't settled yet. "Speak to the lady," he said. The guard turned to her. "A wolf comes, seeking one of its kind." Curlgeyer growled and stalked out to investigate. "Speak not of this outside," the Lady Blue directed the guard. Then she turned to Stile. "Thou art no golem. Comest thou now to destroy what remains of the blue demesne?" "I come to restore it," Stile said. "And canst thou emulate my lord's power as thou dost impersonate his likeness?" she asked coldly. Stile glanced at Nasa. "I cannot, lady, at this time. I have made an oath to do no magic." "How convenient," she said. "Then thou needst not prove thyself, having removed one impostor, and thou proposest to assume his place, contributing no more to these demesne than he did. And I must cover for thee, even as I did for the brute golem." "Thou needst cover for nobody," Stile cried in a flash of anger. "I came because the oracle told me I was blue. I shall do what blue would have done." "Except his magic. That alone distinguished my lord from all others," she said. Stile had no answer. She obviously did not believe him, but he would not break his oath to Nasa, though he wanted above all else to prove himself to the Lady Blue. She was such a stunning figure of a woman. His alternate self had had tastes identical to his own. Curlgeyer returned, assuming man form. "A member of my pack brings bitter news to me," he said. "Friend, I must depart." "Thou wert always free to do so," Stile said, turning to this distraction with a certain relief. "I thank thee for thy help. Without seeking to infringe upon thy prerogatives, if there is aught I can do in return?" "My case is beyond help," the werewolf said. "The pack leader has slain mine oath friend, and my sire is dying of distemper. I must go slay the pack leader, and be, in turn, torn apart by the pack." Stile realized that werewolf politics were deadly serious matters. "Wait, briefly, friend. I don't understand. What is an oath friend, and why?" "I needs must pause to explain, since I shall not be able to do it hereafter," Curlgeyer said. "Friendship such as exists between the two of us is casual. We met at random, part at random, and owe nothing to each other.
Ours is an association of convenience and amicability, but I made an oath of friendship with Drowelthoth, and when I was expelled from the pack, he took my bitch."
"He stole thy female?" Stile cried.
"Nay, what is a bitch compared to oath friendship? He took her as a service to me, that she not be shamed before the pack. Now, over a pointless bone, the leader has slain him, and I must avenge my friend. Since I am no longer of the pack, I may not do this legitimately. Therefore must I do it by stealth, and pay the consequence, though my sire die of grief."
Oath friendship. Stile had not heard of this before, but the concept was appealing. A liaison so strong it preempted male-female relations. That required absolute loyalty, and vengeance for a wrong against that friend as for a wrong against oneself. Golden rule. Yet something else nagged him. Stile pursued it through the tangled skein of his recent experience, integrating things he had learned, and caught it. "There is another way," he said. "I did not grasp it before, because this frame evidently has a more violent manner of settling accounts than I am used to. Here, perhaps, it is proper to kill and be killed over minor points of honor."
"Of course it is,"
the werewolf agreed righteously. "Just so. My apology if I misinterpret thine imperatives. I do not wish to give offense. But as I perceive it, thou couldst rejoin thy pack. Thou hast only to kill thy sire."
"Kill my sire?" Kurlgeir exclaimed. "I told thee."
"Who is dying anyway," Stile continued inexorably. "Which death would he prefer? A lingering, painful, ignominious demise by disease, or an honorable, quick finish in the manner of his kind, as befits his former status, by the teeth of one he knows loves him?" The werewolf stared at Stile, comprehending. "And thus thou art restored to thy pack, having done thy duty, and can honorably avenge thine oath friend, without penalty," Stile concluded, "and take back thy bitch, who otherwise would be shamed by the loss of both wolves she trusted."
"The oracle spoke truly,"
Kurlgeir murmured.
"I did cultivate blue, and blue hath restored me to my heritage. I thought it was anathema of adept magic I was fated to receive, but it was the logic mine own canine brain was too confused to make."
"It was only an alternate perspective," Stile demurred. "I have yet to grasp the full import of mine own oracular message."
"I will gnaw on that," the werewolf said. "Perhaps I shall come upon a similar insight. Farewell, meantime."
And he shifted to wolf form and moved out. Stile looked at the sun. The day was 3 hours advanced. The challenge of rung 5 in just 1 hour. He barely had time to get there. Fortunately, he knew exactly where the curtain was, and where his original aperture was. He had to move. Yet he was hardly finished in this frame. He had slain the golem, with Nesa's help, but had little idea how to proceed here. He might do best to remove himself from this frame for a while, hoping for insights, hoping to know himself better. What did he really want? That depended, in part, on how things fell out on Proton. "I, too, have business elsewhere," Stile said. "I must reach the curtain quickly and get someone to spell me through." Nesa brightened. She stepped up to him. She would handle it. He mounted and they galloped off. Nasa was still hot from her prior exertions, but knew Stile's deadline. In moments she had carried him into the pasture where they had first met. Nasa, I think it would be best if thou shouldst stay at the Blue Demesne while I visit the other frame. I'd appreciate it if thou wouldst inform the Lady Blue about Proton, as thou hast heard it from the werewolf and from me. I don't think she knows. He felt a momentary déjà vu and placed it. This was similar to the manner he was having Sheen tell Hulk about Phaze. Nasa stiffened. Is something wrong? Stile asked. She blew a note of negation and relaxed. Stile, intent on the precise location of the curtain site, did not pursue the matter. Such a short time to reach the game annex. They reached the place in the forest where Stile had erst entered this frame. The curtain was there, shimmering more strongly than before. Perhaps he had simply become better attuned to it. Stile divested himself of his clothes. I will return to the Blue Demesne within a day, I hope. If thou wilt spell me through now? She made a musical snort, and he was through the curtain, emerging in the service area behind the food machines. Only then did he wonder about the unicorn's reticence. Something was bothering Nasa, and now it was too late to ask her about it. Well, he was sorry, but he was in a hurry. He had 20 minutes to reach the game annex, or forfeit. Excuse me. All right, guys, that was chapter 16. And hello, everyone, as you happen to come in the midst of the story there and in the midst of the chapter. Glad to have you guys here. Hope you have been enjoying the read so far. That was chapter 16. We'll get ourselves started on chapter 17 here momentarily. If anybody has any thoughts, questions, comments, or concerns, well, I don't know about concerns, but any thoughts or comments about the book, yeah, feel free to throw them in there. So Stile has finally figured exactly who he was. He is the Blue Adept. His former self was replaced by a golem. Still doesn't know how his former self died, but was replaced by a golem. And the Lady Adept, or the Lady Blue, was covering for it because she didn't want the good works of her husband to go to waste. Stile managed to slay the golem with the help of Nasa, and now he has returned to Proton to try to get to rung 5 so that way he can enter the tourney. Excuse me. Sorry, guys. Getting over a little bit of a cold, so if I have to stop and cough every once in a while, that's why. Still a little bit of a tickle, but I think I'm making it through okay, and hopefully you guys are enjoying it. So here we go. Let's jump on in to chapter 17. Chapter 17. Tourney. He made it. The holder of rung 5 was Hare, who, of course, was almost bald. He was a well-balanced player, without many great strengths, but also without many weaknesses. That made him hard to handle on the grid. Hare would be playing to Stile's liabilities, not to his own strengths, and have a pretty good chance to land an advantageous game. Hare studied Stile. "You look tired," he remarked. "Apt observation," Stile agreed. Naturally, his opponent knew all about yesterday's marathon run. Hare would capitalize on this, choosing the physical column. Stile would negate this by going into machine or animal assisted, so as not to have to depend on his own diminished strength. Of course, Hare would anticipate that and shift his column, perhaps into art. He was good on the theremin. Stile was quite ready to challenge in the classification of music, but would prefer a normal hand-powered instrument. So he would be better off in Tool, where he could wind up with something like a trombone or a harmonica. In fact, the harmonica would be very nice right now, because he had been practicing it in the other frame. But Hare had, after all, stuck with physical, outmaneuvering him. 1B. Tool-assisted physical games. The second grid appeared as the murmur of the audience rose. Stile had the letter facet again. If he chose individual, he could get caught in another endurance or strength exercise, and he was hardly up for it. If Hare selected ball, it might work out to bowling, where Stile could win, or shot put, where he could not. Hare was no Hulk, but he could heave an object a fair distance. One, ball. 2, vehicle. 3, weapon. 4, athletic. 5, general. A, individual. B, interactive. Or he could go for vehicle, and they would be in a canoe race or bike race or skating race. Stile was fast on skates, but his legs were tired. This was not his day. Weapons was no better. He wasn't ready to bend a powerful bow to shoot at a target 300 meters distant. His aim would surely suffer. His separated cartilage in the ribcage gave a twinge. No, he could not draw a bow, but throwing the javelin or hammer was no better. Nor was pole vaulting. God, no. In the next box, or skiing, or even sledding. He pictured himself whomping belly first on a small sled and shooting the ice rapids, and his ribcage gave a worse twinge. Only in general did he have a fair chance with things like hopscotch, horseshoes, or jacks, or tiddlywinks. Major games had been won and lost in that game, with the audience as avidly breathless as it would have been for a saber match. Stile was expert in tiddlywinks, but he knew he would not get to play them this time. So it had to be interactive. That had its pitfalls too, but in general skill was more important than power. It came up 1B, interactive ball games. Good. Stile was skilled in most of these and should be able to take Hare, so long as Hare did not catch on to his special liabilities, like the ribs or the bruised left hand. Oh, that wooden head of the golem that he had so blithely punched. They set up the 9-box subgrid, filling it with marbles, jeux de boules, croquet, billiards, tennis, table soccer, ping pong, soccer, and earthball. The last would be a disaster. Stile played to avoid it, and the result was ping pong. Well, not good, but not bad. Stile was excellent at this sport, and his right hand remained good, but he would be off his game today. Hare was good enough to take advantage of Stile's present weakness, if he caught on to it in time. They adjourned to the table games gym. A number of games were in progress: pool, table soccer, and of course, ping pong. But these were quickly wrapped up when the players saw who was coming. Stile's move up the ladder was already big news. They took a table, picked up the paddles, and volleyed. Several minutes were permitted for limbering prior to the game.
Time,
the machine scorekeeper announced.
Select service.
They did it in the archaic, time-honored fashion, similar to that for the game of Go. Hare took the ball, put it under the table in one hand, and spread his arms apart. Stile chose the right and got it. He had first serve. It was a good break for him, for Stile was an offensive player whose serve was integral to his strategy. He needed to take and keep the initiative to make up for his lack of reach. He would not be able to win points directly from his serve against a player of Hare's caliber, but he could certainly put the man safely on the defensive. That was the way Stile liked it. It gave him necessary options. Of course, the serve would change every 5 points, but once he had the lead, he could ride through to victory without pushing himself. Considering his present liabilities, that was important. Stile served. A cross-court top-spin ball, fast and low over the net, striking neatly 2 centimeters from the back edge of the table. Hare returned it cautiously with an undercut to the center of Stile's court. The game was on. Stile backhanded the ball with a flick of the wrist to Hare's forehand court. Move it about, keep the other player reaching. Never let the opponent get set for his own strategy. Hare returned it to Stile's forehand, somewhat high and shaky, with almost no spin. Good. He was nervous. That diminished Stile's own tension. This was going his way. Stile made a forehand slam and took the point. Stile served again the moment he had the ball, backhand cross-court with an undercut. Hare flubbed it again. The score was 2-0. Hare was more visibly nervous now. Excellent. The psychology of nervousness was important in any competition. But Hare's next return, played too low, nevertheless dribbled over the net, unreturnable. 2-1. These lucky shots occurred. It was usually of no significance. Only when the luck played obvious favorites, as sometimes happened despite the assurances of the experts on probability, was it a critical factor. Stile fired in a side spin, and Hare sent it wide of the table. 3-1. The next volley went longer, but Stile finally put it away with good cross-court slam. 4-1. This game was not going to be a problem. Now it was Hare's serve. He uncorked a weak drop shot that barely cleared the end of the table. Stile, expecting a harder shot, almost muffed it. But his return was a setup, and Hare put it away for the point. 2-4. In ping-pong, the server score was always listed first. There was something funny about Hare's style, and in moments he took 2 more points. Stile bore down, overreached himself, and lost another. Now he was behind. Carelessness. But the run continued. Stile suddenly seemed unable to do right. In moments he was behind 4-10, having lost 9 points in a row, his own serve no longer helping him. What was wrong? He had started well, then lost it. Had fatigue undercut him more than he realized, interfering with his precision? Stile didn't think so. He was playing well enough to win, except that he was losing. Why? He served a drop shot that barely cleared the table. Hare returned it too softly. It was a setup shot that Stile swiftly put away. 5-10. Strange that the return had been so soft. Hare knew better. Then Stile caught on. Hare was using a random variable surface paddle. This was legal, as standards for table tennis bats had never been instituted, but also tricky, for precision placement was difficult. The variations of bounce were not great, which was why it had not been obvious, but Stile should have noticed it before. That was how his fatigue let him down. He had not been alert to the unexpected. In an instant, Stile knew what he had to do. The variable surface returns forced Hare to play conservatively, keeping his shots well within the margin of safety, though that sometimes set shots up for Stile. But Hare was aware of that. Stile, unaware, had been playing aggressively, and so those slightly changed returns had fouled him up more than his opponent. The more points he lost, the more aggressively he played, aggravating the situation. A difference in ball velocity and travel so small as to be imperceptible to an onlooker could play havoc with a style like Stile's. He couldn't handle it. Stile was good enough so that the paddle gave him the edge. Had Stile caught on early, he could have played more conservatively himself, holding his lead, forcing Hare to make more aggressive shots that were increasingly risky. But with a 5-10 deficit, that strategy wouldn't work. Stile was the one who had to get aggressive and lose. He had been suckered, just as he had in the marathon detour. His opponent had outplayed him, off the grid. Stile was in deep trouble again. So he had to change his game. He had to go all the way defensive. He needed to allow time and distance to analyze each return individually. This wasn't his normal game, but he had no choice now. He tried. He had not played a lot of ping pong recently. How could he, with all that had been going on in two worlds, and had kept in shape only in his natural game, offense? Spins, placements, slams, changes of pace, all fouled up by the marginal uncertainty of the variable surface paddle. Now, thrown back on a long-neglected resource, he seemed to be in worse trouble yet. He lost a point, and another. 12-5. Soon the gap would be too large to close. Sheer chance would give a few points to Hare in the end. But Stile worked at it, making his shots high and central and safe. This set him up neatly for Hare, who quickly adapted to the situation and started getting more aggressive. Hare had been leeway now. He could afford to indulge in normally weak offense. Stile was only digging himself in deeper. Yet, he had to do it. He extended himself, despite twinges from his ribcage, adapting to this mode. He could judge the shots better now, for he was playing far back, and he was getting the feel of it. He did know how to do it. He had only to remember to dredge up long unused reflexes. He fought the next point, covering all Hare's maneuvers, and won it, and lost the next. He still had not quite worked it out, and he needed to, because a point of no return was coming close. The audience was hushed by this remarkable turn of the game. Now an announcer could be heard from the supposedly soundproof telebooth. Strangest ping-pong game of the season. Stile, the favorite, far behind and playing as if he wants to lose it worse yet. Will be an inquest to determine whether someone has been paid off. As if he didn't have enough of a problem already. They thought he was throwing this game, that some other citizen had proffered him lucrative employment if he missed the tourney this year. Fortunately, the computer analysis of the recording would refute that. All Stile's lost points were honest ones. But if he lost, what difference would it make whether it were honest or dishonest? He would be finished. In this world, anyway. But that was not the way he wanted to depart Proton. He had to recover this game. Stile played the next serve carefully, extending the volley. He needed practice at this defensive game, and the longer the volleys continued, the more practice he would get. He won the point, bringing up the change of service at 13-7. His turn to serve, but if he used it to take the offense, he would lose. He had to give up his normal advantage for the sake of his strategy, not breaking his continuity. He served gently and heard the response of the audience. Most of the watchers did not know why he had been missing points, and thought he was being driven to defense by the strategy of Hare's offense. They thought he was foolish to throw away his principal weapon. The serve had always been his tool for the initiative. Some spectators were already leaving, satisfied that Stile had lost. Hare was glad to continue the offense. He had nothing to gain by indulging in prolonged volleys. Now that Stile had neutralized the paddle weapon, longer volleys would only give Hare more chances to make mistakes. He needed to put away his points quickly, before Stile got his defensive game in full shape, even if he lost 2 points for one. But already Stile was strengthening. The volleys stretched out. Hare lost one, won two, but now he was sweating. Hare was not accustomed to continuous offense, and as Stile's resistance stiffened, technically became more fluid, Hare began to make errors of his own. The scales were balancing. Still, Stile's knees limited him, and his ribs. His reach was minimal in the best of circumstances, and was even more restricted now. He had not quite closed the gap in skills in this inverted mode, and the game was running out. They exchanged more points, bringing the score to 17-10 during Hare's service. A 7-point deficit, with only 4 points to go for Hare. This was bad. If Stile did not rally now, strongly, he was done for. Hare served. Stile returned it high and center, well toward the back edge so that Hare's shot would have plenty of distance to travel. A setup for a slam, but not for a trick shot. Hare had to hit it hard and long. He did, placing it to Stile's backhand, and Stile returned it with a smooth undercut. His ball arced over, slowing as it dropped, forcing Hare to strike with another undercut lest he lose control. An undercut, backspinning ball in ping pong was a strange shot with special properties. It reacted in the air, on the table, and against the paddle, requiring careful handling. In the ancient days of cork, sandpaper, or rubber-surfaced paddles, this was not too tricky. But as these gave way to foam rubber and specialized semi-adhesive synthetics, the spin-imparting capabilities of paddles had become devastating. It was possible to make a ball loop in air, or execute an almost right-angle turn as it bounced. However, such trick shots required skill and energy, and were obvious to a good player, who could then handle them with efficient counterspins. The spin on the incoming ball could be as devastating as the spin going out, making these surfaces a liability to the user, if he were not experienced. The key was to slip in spins that the opponent was not aware of, until too late, when he missed the shot. Stile, playing back and often below the level of the table, had greater leeway in this respect, now than Hare did. Hare knew it and was nervous, and doubly careful. He could not uncork full slams lest the hidden spin of the ball send them wide. Stile's proficiency in the mode was increasing, and the advantage was coming to him at last. But that 7-point deficit. Stile delivered a swooping undercut side spin ball that struck the table and took off at an impressive angle. But Hare was ready for it. He countered the spin in the course of a soft shot. The ball barely cleared the net, and would have dribbled 3 times on Stile's side before it cleared the table, had not Stile dived to intercept it in time. As it was, he got it back, but only in the form of a high, spinless setup. Hare pounced on his opportunity. He slammed the ball off the backhand corner. Stile leaped back to intercept it, getting it safely over the net, But as another setup, Hare slammed again, this time to Stile's forehand corner, forcing him to dive for it. Stile felt a pain in his ribcage. He got the ball back, but at the expense of aggravating his recent injury. He was in extra trouble now, but he would not give up the point. He had worked too hard for it already. Hare slammed again, driving him back. Had Hare been a natural offense player, Stile would have been finished. But these slams lacked the authority they needed. Stile managed to return it, again without adequate spin. Hare slammed yet again, harder. Stile retreated far to the rear, getting on top of it, and sent it back. But he had misjudged. The ball cleared the net, but landed too near it and bounced too high. Hare had a put-away setup. Stile braced desperately for the bullet to come. And Hare made a drop shot. The ball slid off his paddle, bounced over the right edge of Stile's court, and headed for the floor. A sucker shot, and Stile had fallen for it. Stile, nonsensically, went for it. He launched himself forward, paddle hand outstretched. His feet left the floor as he did a racing belly flop toward that descending ball. He landed and slid, his ribs parting further, but got his paddle under the ball 3 centimeters above the floor and flicked it up violently. From the floor, Stile watched that ball sail high, spinning, up toward the ceiling, then down. Would it land on the proper side of the net? If it did, Hare would put it away, for Stile could never scramble back in time. Yet he had aimed it to... The ball dropped beyond his line of sight. Hare hovered near, hardly believing his shot had been returned, primed for the finishing slam when the ball rebounded high. It was clearing the net then. Stile heard the strike of the ball on the table. Then hell broke loose. There was a gasp from the audience as Hare dived around the table, reaching for an impossible shot, as Stile had done. But Hare could not make it. He fell as his hand smacked into the net support. Then Hare's shoulder took out the center leg of the table, and the table sagged. Underneath the impromptu tent, Hare's gaze met Stile's as the robot scorekeeper announced, "Point to Stile. Score 17-11. "Your backspin carried the ball into the net before I could get to it," Hare explained. "Unless I could fetch it from the far side as it dribbled down." "You didn't need to try for that one," Stile pointed out. "I made a desperation move because I'm up against my point of no return. But you still have a 6-point margin." "Now he tells me," Hare muttered ruefully. "I don't think of that sort of thing when I'm going for a point." "Your hand," Stile said. "It's bleeding." Hare hauled his paddle hand around. "Bleeding? No wonder. I just broke 2 fingers going for a point I didn't need." It was no joke. A robot medic examined the hand as they climbed from the wreckage of the table and sprayed an anesthetic on it. Shock had prevented Hare from feeling the pain initially, but it was coming now. Little scalpels flashed as the robot went to work, opening the skin, injecting bone restorative, resetting the brakes, binding the fingers in transparent splint plastic. "I don't think I'll be able to finish the game," Hare said. "I'm not much for left-handed play." "Stile! By TKO!" someone in the audience exclaimed. Then there was foolish applause. Rung 5 was his. Stile had qualified for the tourney, but he did not feel elated. He had wanted to win it honestly, not by a fluke. Now no one would believe that he could have done it on his own. Hulk intercepted them as they left the game premises. He looked a little wobbly, but was definitely on the mend. He had a rugged constitution.
Stile, about that offer.
Still open, Stile said with sudden gladness.
Your girl was persuasive.
Sheen has a logical mind, Stile agreed.
I have nothing to lose,
Hulk said.
I don't believe in magic, but if there's a primitive world there, where a man can prosper by the muscle of his arm and never have to say sir to a citizen.
See for yourself. I'm going there now. Stile, wait, Sheen protested. You have injuries. You're worn out. You need rest, attention. Stile squeezed her hand. There is none better than what you provide, Sheen. But across the curtain is a lady and a unicorn, and I fear they may be jealous of each other. I must hurry. I know about Nasa, she said. She's no more human than I am, and why she puts up with you is beyond my circuitry. But now you have a lady, too? A real, live girl? What about my jealousy?
Maybe I broke in at the wrong time,
Hulk said. Do not be concerned, Sheen told him sweetly. I'm only a machine. Stile knew he was in trouble again.
You were a robot?
Hulk asked, perplexed.
You made a reference, but I thought it wasn't serious.
All metal and plastics and foam rubber, Sheen assured him. Therefore, I have no feelings. Hulk was in difficulty. His eyes flicked to the lusher portions of her anatomy that jiggled in most humanly provocative fashion as she walked, then guiltily away.
I thought. You certainly fooled me.
He bit his lip. About the feelings, I mean, as well as... She has feelings, Stile said. She's as volatile as any living creature. You don't have to lie for me, Stile, Sheen said, with just that stiffness of body and voice that put him in his place. She had become expert at the human manner.
Lie?
Hulk shook his head.
There's one thing you should know about Stile. He never...
She knows it, Stile said tiredly. She's punishing me for my indiscretion in finding a living woman.
Sorry I got mixed in,
Hulk muttered. Stile turned to Sheen. I did not know I would encounter the lady in the blue demesne. I did not realize at first what she was. I destroyed the golem that had impersonated me, but did not realize the complications until later. And now that you do realize, you are eager to return to those complications, Sheen said coldly. I understand that is man's nature. She must be very pretty. You want me to look out for Nasa's interest, don't you? Stile said desperately, though he had the sensation of quicksand about his feet. She's there in the blue castle, alone. The lady, she interrupted with new insight. The Lady Blue? The one your alternate self married?
Uh-oh,
Hulk murmured. Stile spread his hands. What can I do? Why couldn't I have been programmed to love a male robot? Sheen exclaimed rhetorically. You flesh men are all alike. The moment you find a flesh woman... It's not like that, Stile protested. She is devoted to the memory of her husband. Who resembled you exactly? She told me off when you tried what? She demanded. Now Stile raised his hands in surrender. If I stay here 4 hours longer, 8 hours, she said firmly. 6. 6. And you promised to return for the tourney after. Yes.
That will give me time to put my own affairs in order,
Hulk said. Sheen laughed. Oh, yes. She had her reactions down almost perfect now. There we go, guys. That was chapter 17. We have one chapter left to go. Chapter 18. Are you guys all ready for the finale of Split Infinity? I know I am. Now, I've read it before. I know what's coming. The entire world explodes. Those other 8 books that you think are coming after this one, nah, they just don't exist. It's all a figment of your imagination. Okay, so that's not what happens here. So we'll start ourselves into chapter 18. Of course, as I've mentioned previously, you can catch all of the previous chapters on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/@SirArminius. And I will have these chapters all posted up tonight. Excuse me. After the stream. So look for the entire book there by tomorrow. But now, let's go ahead and dive into the final chapter. Next week, we'll start into book 2 of the series. I know you guys want to. I believe it's called Blue Adept. But that's next week. This week, let's finish out Split Infinity. So sit back, everybody, relax, and prepare to enjoy the finale of Split Infinity. Chapter 18. Chapter 18. Oath. They tried it, and it worked. Hulk passed through the curtain. He stood amazed and gratified, looking around at the forest. It was dawn. She had managed to hold Stile for more like 18 hours, the last half of which was sleeping. Well, he had been in dire need of the rest, and she had treated him with assorted minor medical aids, including a restorative heat lamp, so that he really felt much better now.
I never saw anything so beautiful,
Hulk said, gazing at the brightening world. Yes, it is that. Stile agreed. He had tended to forget the sheer loveliness of this land when involved in other things. If all else were equal, he would prefer Phaze to Proton for its natural beauty. Hulk had brought along a costume, per Stile's advice. Now he watched Stile getting into his own.
Are you sure
that ordinary people wear clothes here? I'm sure. Another thing, the language differs slightly. You have to. He was interrupted by a sudden loud hissing. A smoke-exhaling serpent rose up, flapping its wings menacingly. It was a small dragon. Stile backed off warily, but the dragon followed, sensing compatible prey. One spell could have banished it, but its fiery breath made a sword uncertain. In any event, Stile no longer had his sword. He retreated farther.
Let me try my Beastman ploy,
Hulk said. He jumped forward, bellowed incoherently to get the dragon's attention, then raised both arms in a dramatic muscle man pose. It was extraordinarily impressive. He had spent years perfecting a body that was a natural marvel. He danced about, beating his chest and growling. He looked, altogether, foolishly menacing. The dragon turned tail and nipped off, whimpering. Stile dissolved in laughter. Hulk abated his antics, smiling.
That was fun. You often don't need to fight if you just look as if you'd like to. Was that thing really what it looked like?
Yes, this really is a land of fantasy. When you struck that pose, you looked like an ogre.
Literal ogres exist here?
I believe they do. I've never actually seen one, but I'm sure that's the correct analogy. Hulk looked dubiously at his costume, then started putting it on.
I didn't really believe in the magic aspect. I thought it might be matter transmission and odd effects.
I had the same problem at first, but it is better to believe. Magic can kill you here.
I'll take my chances. It's like another aspect of the game, with its special subset of rules. But it puts me in doubt what to do here. I don't know the first thing about magic.
Most people don't practice it, Stile said, but you do have to be aware of it, and there are certain conventions. Maybe you'd better come with me until you catch on. I'm going to the Blue Domain.
What would I do in colorful demean? I know even less about courtly manners than I do about magic. And if Sheen's suspicions about your lady are correct, I should not be a witness.
You might serve as my bodyguard. Hulk laughed.
Since when do you need a bodyguard? You can beat anyone in your weight class in general combat, regardless of age.
Here, opposition doesn't necessarily come in my weight class. It comes in yours. Someone is trying to kill me, sending things like demon monsters after me. I would feel easier if a good big man were keeping an eye out. You are conversant with hand weapons.
All part of the game.
Hulk agreed. You could play dumb, like a monster, until you picked up the ways of this world. Then go out on your own. You can cross back to Proton any time, too, by making a spell to pass you through the curtain.
You have some status in this world, so it wouldn't look strange to have a brute bodyguard?
It seems I do. Or will achieve it shortly, if I survive the efforts of my anonymous enemy. So I'd really appreciate it if you...
You are a generous man, Stile. You do me a favor in the guise of asking for one.
Stile shrugged. Hulk was no fool. I'll tell people I removed a thorn from your paw, but don't consider it too much a favor. There is danger. You could get killed associating with me.
I could get killed just running the marathon. Let's go.
They went. Stile led the way north as the sun cleared the forest and angled its fresh, bright shafts between the branches, seeking the ground. They trotted across the opening fields toward the Blue Domain. As the castle came into view, a sun ray reflected from its highest turret in brilliant blue. This, too, Stile thought, had to be added to the class of most beautiful things. Then he paused. Do you hear it, Hulk? Hulk listened.
Ground shaking. Getting louder.
I don't know whether dragons stampede or whether they have earthquakes here. We'd better hurry. They hurried. As they crossed the plain around the castle, they saw it. A herd of animals charging toward the same object.
Looks like wild horses,
Hulk said. Unicorns? What are they doing here?
A whole herd? could be coming to the aid of one of their number. Wild animals can be like that.
Nasa! Stile cried. If something happened to her...
We had better get over there and see,
Hulk said. I should never have let Sheen delay me.
I doubt you had much choice in the matter, and we both did need the rest. Is she really a robot?
She really is. Not that it makes much difference.
And Nasa really is a horse? A unicorn who turns into a woman?
That too. And a firefly. You will see it soon enough, if all is well. Stile was increasingly nervous about that. They ran, moving into the marathon pace. Neither man was in condition for it because this was too soon after the real one they had run. But this was not to be the full course. They approached the blue demesne. But the unicorns were moving faster. Now their music sounded across the field like a percussion and wind orchestra. In the lead was a great stallion whose tone was that of a fine accordion. On the flanks were lesser males whose horns were muted or silent. Evidently unicorns were not gelded. They were muted in public. In the center ran the mass of mature mares, carrying the burden of the melody. The stallion would play the theme, and the mares would reiterate it in complex harmonies. It was an impressive charge, visually and sonically. Now from the west appeared another group, dark and low to the ground, moving faster than the unicorns. Stile struggled to make it out. Then he heard the baying of a canine type and understood. "Werewolves!" he cried.
I am ignorant of conventions here, apart from what Sheen told me of what you had told her,
Hulk puffed.
But is such convergence of herd and pack usual?
Not that I know of, Stile admitted. It could be Kurlgeir returning with friends, but I don't see why. Or it could be the pack leader Kurlgeir went to kill. If he were victorious and sought revenge on the person who helped Kurlgeir, I don't know. They certainly look grim.
Werewolves and unicorns are natural enemies?
Yes, and both are normally unfriendly to man. Kurlgeir and Nasa learned to get along, but...
Now, I'm no genius, and this is not my business, but it strikes me that the arrival of these two forces at this time strains coincidence. Could this relate to you? If there were some alert, some way they would be aware of the moment you re-entered this frame.
That's what I'm afraid of, Stile said. You see, I'm a natural magician in this frame, a focus of much power, but I have sworn off magic.
And your frame wife would like you to break that oath,
Hulk said,
so you can preserve the blue demesne from further harm. And the animals would want you to keep your oath, so you will not become anathema to them. These two types of animals may just be united. Against you. You were not joking about needing a bodyguard.
You catch on rapidly, Stile agreed. The two of them picked up speed, though both were tiring, in an effort to reach the castle before either herd or pack. But it soon became evident that they would not succeed. The unicorn herd would arrive first, then the wolves. Now the wolf pack veered, orienting on Stile instead of the castle. There seemed to be 90 or 100 of them. Large, dark animals with heavy fur and gleaming eyes and teeth that showed whitely with their panting.
I hope, despite my reasoning, that they're on our side,
Hulk said, slowing to a walk. The wolves ringed them. One came forward and shifted into man form. A fresh scar ran across one cheek, and his left ear was missing. But it was Stile's friend. "Kurlgeir!" Stile exclaimed. "Thou wast victorious!"
That was not in question, once thou hast shown me the way,
the werewolf replied. He peered at Hulk.
This monster man, friend or foe?
"Friend," Stile said quickly.
"Then I sniff tails with thee, ogre,"
Kurlgeir said, extending his hand to Hulk.
"Sure,"
Hulk agreed awkwardly, taking the hand. He seemed to be having some trouble believing the transformation he had just seen. "Hulk is from the other frame," Stile said quickly. "My bodyguard. He doesn't talk much." And he flashed Hulk a warning glance. "To what do I owe the pleasure of this visit?"
"I feared I wronged thee inadvertently,"
the werewolf said.
"I returned to my pack, but could not kill my sire without first explaining why."
"You killed your—"
Hulk began, startled. Kurlgeir turned, half shifting into wolf form.
"Thou addressed me in that derogatory mode and tone?"
he growled. "He knows not our ways," Stile cried. "Even as I did not, at first, and thou didst have to set me straight. He meant thee no offense." The werewolf returned all the way to man form.
"Of course. I apologize for mistaking thy intent,"
he said to Hulk.
"It remains a sensitive matter, and in certain respect, thou resemblest the type of monster that—"
"He understands," Stile said. "We all make errors of assumption at first. Why shouldst thou not explain to thy sire? It was the kindest thing thou couldst do for one already ill to death." Hulk nodded, beginning to understand. A mercy killing. Close enough.
"I came to my sire's den,"
Kurlgeir said grimly.
"He met me in man form and said, 'Why comest thou here? This place is not safe for thee, my pup.' I replied, 'I come to slay thee as befits the love I have for thee, my sire, and the honor of our line. Then will I avenge mine oath friend, Drowltoth, and restore my bitch to prominence in the pack.' Hardly did he betray his dignity or yield to the ravage of distemper I perceived in him. In that moment he stood as proud as I remembered him of old. 'I knew thou wouldst thus return in honor,' he said. 'How didst thou come to accept what must be done?' I told him, 'A man persuaded me, even as the oracle foretold.' And he asked, 'Who was this good man?' And I replied, 'The Blue Adept.' And he asked, 'How is it that an adept did this thing for thee?' I said, 'He was dead, and his double comes from the other frame to restore his demean.' Then my sire looked beyond me in alarm, and I turned and discovered that others of the pack had come up silently during my distraction and overheard. Thus the pack knew that the blue demesne were in flux, and the word spread quickly. And my bitch spoke and said, 'Of all the adepts, Blue alone has been known to do good works among animals, and if that should change—'
"But that will not change," Stile protested.
I tried to tell them that, but mine own kind doubted, And when the unicorns learned that Nasa was prisoner at the Blue Domain.
Prisoner? She's not. But Stile had to stop. Is she?
We know not, but the unicorn stallion is of imperious bent.
Well, if she is prisoner, that will cease the moment I get there. But thou hast not finished thy story.
It is simple enough,
Kurlgeir said.
The pack leader came and my sire said, "It is time." We changed to wolf form, and quickly and cleanly I tore the throat out of my sire, and knew then that I had done right. And never did I see a wolf so glad to die. I then whirled and challenged the pack leader while yet my sire's corpse lay steaming, and my right could not be denied before the pack. The pack leader was not so eager to die. He fought, and perhaps he injured me.
Kurlgeir smiled briefly, touching the stump of his ear.
His throat I did not tear. That was too honorable a demise for such a cur. I hamstrung him, spiked both his eyes, tore out his tongue, and drove him with bitten tail into the wilderness to die lame and blind among the monsters. It was an excellent reckoning.
Stile concealed his reaction to this savage tale of vengeance. Perhaps he would have done something similar, in a similar circumstance. And thy bitch as well? He inquired, glancing at the female wolf who stood nearest.
As well as one might be, following exile of her stud, slaughter of his oath friend, and forced heat to the pack leader. But she will recover. I am now pack leader, and she remains my chosen. All other bitches whine before her.
A fitting resolution, Stile said, hoping that Hulk had now grasped enough of the situation to avoid any further errors of manner.
Yet she is marked,
Kurlgeir continued.
She it was who made me see that the man needed support.
Nasa, Stile agreed, but I assure thee. Now the bitch shifted to woman form. She was pretty enough, with a wild orange flare of hair, but did look peaked. She must have had as hard a recent life as the Lady Blue, and survived it as toughly.
What mode of man art thou?
She demanded of Stile.
To trust thy female friend to the power of thy wife.
The Lady Blue is not my wife, Stile protested.
Perhaps not as long as the mare lives. I know somewhat of these things.
Surely an understatement.
When the mare is dead, thou wilt be freed of thine oath, and practice magic.
No, Stile cried.
I tried to tell her thou wert true,
Kurlgeir said.
No way wouldst thou harm the mare. And like my wolf, innocent of the ways of the bitch,
the female werewolf finished.
The mare is of a species we honor not, as they attempt to rival us as rulers of the wilds. But she brought thee to my love, and thou hast sent him home to me, to the honor he was due. I owe the mare. I perceive the danger thou dost not. The Lady Blue knows no limitations to her determination to maintain her lord's domain. If thou savest not the mare, I will avenge her in the manner of an oath friend, though there be no oath between us.
Could she be right? Had Stile sent Nasa to her doom in the Blue Domain? What a colossal miscalculation! Yet Nasa could take care of herself, and the lady was no adept. If she is not safe, I will avenge her myself, Stile said. But he could not make an oath on it. Suppose the Lady Blue had.
Others know thee not as I do,
Kurlgeir said.
So I felt it best to be on the scene when the herd arrived, lest unwarranted blame fall on thee. Thou mayest need guidance.
I may indeed, Stile agreed. What a complex situation had blown up in his brief absence. They proceeded toward the castle. The unicorns had drawn up before its gate, their music fading out. They were waiting for Stile to arrive. There were about 50 of them, almost evenly divided between mares and lesser males, with the huge stallion in front. The stallion stood some 18 hands high at the shoulder, more than 30 centimeters, about a foot above Stile's head, and all his mass was functional. A truly impressive creature. Hulk studied the stallion with open admiration. Indeed, the two were similar in proportion to their species. Stile halted, for the unicorns blocked the way. The werewolves ranged beside him, grim but neutral. They were here because their new pack leader had brought them, at the behest of his bitch. They were not too keen on unicorns, but also not too keen on human beings. Hulk stood back, heeding Stile's admonition to be silent. There was much here that was not yet properly understood. Dost thou seek to bar me from my heritage? Stile asked the stallion. The unicorn did not answer. His glance fell on Stile from an impressive elevation, bisected by the long and deadly spiraling horn. His head was golden, his mane silver, and his body a narcissus gray deepening into black fetlocks and hooves. His tail matched his mane, beautifully flowing, reflecting the light of the sun almost blindingly. No horse ever had this coloration or this rugged splendor. After a moment, the stallion snorted, a brief accordion treble punctuated by 2 bass notes. One of the lesser males stepped forward, shifting shape. It was Clip, Nesa's brother. I helped thee at my sister's behest, he said. What hast thou to say for thyself? I mean to enter that castle and see how Nesa is doing, Stile said. But Kurlgeir's remarks, and the apprehension of the bitch with regard to the conflict between the unicorn mare and the Lady Blue, made him queasy. Had he really betrayed his steed and friend into doom? Had Nesa suspected it when she left him? What kind of a woman was the Lady Blue really? And what would she do with the associate of the man who had destroyed the Golem imposter? Stile had thought she would be grateful, but she certainly had not greeted him with open arms. Yet, how could he believe that his alternate self, his likeness in every respect except environment, had married a woman who would callously murder any creature who stood in her way? Had the Lady Blue shown anything other than a sincere and praiseworthy dedication to her late husband's cause and memory? Yet again, if she knew that Stile alone could restore the greatness of the Blue Demesne, hindered only by a foolish oath. And if she lives, what then? Clip demanded. The herd stallion demands to know. What does the herd stallion care about Nesa? Stile retorted, knowing that in this respect he was voicing the sentiment Clip could not voice. She was excluded from the herd for no valid reason. She's as pretty and fine a mare as any in the herd, I'll warrant. She should have been bred long ago. Clip hesitated, understandably. He was at the moment the mouthpiece for his superior, yet his sister's welfare was dearest to his heart, and he was loath to refute Stile's statement.
Thou hast not answered the stallion's question. What will ye with Nasa if she survives the treachery of Blue?
Treachery of Blue? Stile cried in sudden fury. I am Blue. But he felt Hulk's hand on his shoulder, warning him to restraint. Without his magic, he could not really be the Blue Adept. The unicorn herd faced him silently, and so did Kurlgeyer's bitch. Stile realized it was a fair question, and a hard one. No one had actually accused the lady of murder. The question was about Stile's own loyalties. He was, potentially, the most powerful person here. If the lady were exonerated, what would he do then? If you take Nasa into the herd and breed her and treat her as befits a mare of quality, I welcome it. Otherwise, she is welcome to stay with me and be my honored steed as long as she wishes.
And what of thine oath to her?
What of it? Stile snapped.
What of Nasa when thou breakest that oath?
Stile suffered another abrupt siege of wrath.
Who claims I am a breaker of oaths?
The stallion claims, Clip said with a certain satisfaction. For a moment, Stile's anger choked off his speech. His hand went for his sword, but slapped only cloth. He had no sword now. Only Hulk's firm, understanding hand held him back from a physical and foolish assault on the huge unicorn. Kurlgeyer stepped forward and spoke instead.
I was with this man when the Black Adept imprisoned him, but he did no magic, though he was dying of thirst and knew that the simplest spell, such as even any one of us might do, could bring him water and freedom. He freed us from the clutch of the Yellow Adept without magic. He slew the golem of the Blue Demon by hand, without magic. He showed me how to regain my status in the pack, using no magic. Now he comes again to this frame, without magic. Never in my presence has he violated his oath. If the stallion snorts otherwise, the stallion offends me.
The herd stallion's horn nicked, glinting in the sun. He pawed the ground with one massive forehoof. The lesser males drew in to flank him, and the mares shifted position, every horn lowering to point forward. The unicorns were beautiful, garbed in their naturally bright reds, blues, and greens. But they meant business. The hairs on Kurlgeyer's neck lifted exactly like the hackles of a wolf, though he retained man form. His pack closed in about him, wolves and bitches alike, with an almost subvocal snarling. They were quite ready to pick a quarrel with unicorns.
Hark,
Hulk said. He was the only one with the height and direction to see over the masked unicorns.
the lady comes, and a small unicorn.
Stile felt abruptly weak with relief. The herd stallion turned and snorted a triple octave chord. The herd parted, forming a channel. Now everyone could see the Lady Blue and Nasa walking from the castle gate, side by side, both healthy. There had, after all, been no trouble. No overt trouble. The lady was lovely. She wore a pale blue gown, blue flower petal slippers, and pointed blue headdress. Stile had admired her form before, but now she had flowered into matchless beauty. He had, in the past hectic hours, forgotten the impact the touch of her hands had had on him. Now, with his fear for Nesa's safety eased, his memory came back strongly, and his knees felt warm. What a woman she was! And Nesa? What of her? She tripped daintily along beside the lady, her black mane and tail in perfect order, her hooves and horns shining. She was beautiful too. Stile had never seen his relationship with her in terms of choice. He had tacitly assumed she would always be with him. But Nesa was more than a steed, and his association with her had been more than that of a man and animal. If he became the Blue Adept, not only would he practice a magic that she abhorred, he would take to himself the human woman. Stile and Nesa, they could not continue what had been. That disruption had been inevitable from the moment of the discovery that he could perform powerful magic. The wolves and other unicorns had understood this better than he had. They were more familiar with the imperatives of this world. Yet, how could he betray Nesa? They came to stand before Stile. Stile inclined his head, honoring formalities, though he had no notion what was about to happen. One issue had been diffused. Nesa lived. The other issue remained to be settled. Hello, Nesa. Hello, Lady Blue. The two females made a slight nod, almost together, but did not speak. The herd stallion snorted another chord. Choose, Clip said, translating. By what right dost thou make such demand of me? Stile cried, reacting with half-guilty anger. The stallion is responsible for the welfare of his herd, Clip replied. He permitted thee to use a surplus mare, and she not be abused. But now she has yielded her loyalty to thee. Thou mayest not cast her aside with impunity. If I cast her aside, she returns to the herd, Stile replied, hating the words. But his caution was being overridden by his emotion. Art thou trying to force me to do this, or not to do this? An thou dost cast her aside, it is shame to the herd, and that shame must be abated in blood. Thou keepest her, or thou payest the consequence. The stallion has so decreed.
The stallion is bloated with gas, Kurlgeir growled. Knows he not that he challenges the Blue Adept? With a single spell, this man could banish this whole herd to the snows.
Save that he has made an oath of no magic to my sister, Clip retorted. And he honors that oath. He has no need to banish any creature. For the first time, the Lady Blue spoke. How convenient, she said dulcetly, as she had the first time Stile had met her. Kurlgeir turned on her. Stile remembered that the werewolf had left them just before this subject came up yesterday.
What meanest thou, human bitch?
If this were an insult, and Stile could not be sure of that, the lady gave no sign. Knowest thou not, wolf, that I have harbored an impostor these past 10 days, lest news escape of the murder of my husband? She demanded disdainfully. Now another image comes, claiming to be blue. But blue is distinguished chiefly by his magic, the strongest in all the land of Phaze, and this impostor performs none. as thou thyself hast testified so eloquently. Were he in sooth the alternate of my husband, he could indeed banish the herd from these demesne. Since he is not, he pleads an oath. I have no slightest doubt he has been true to his oath, and will remain true. He is, in fact, incapable of breaking it. He is not blue. Nesa's head swung angrily about, and she made a harmonica snort that made the other mare's ears perk up in mute shock. The lady's lips thinned. The mare believes he is adept. She is enamored of him. Has any other person or creature witnessed his alleged magic? Even Kurlgeir had to admit he had not.
The oath was made before I met him, yet I have no reason to doubt.
Without magic, thou hast no debate with the stallion about the impostor's choice. He shall not be with me. Let him stay with the mare he has deluded. Nesa's snort seemed to have the tinge of fire. So did the stallion's. Stile suddenly appreciated how cleverly the lady was maneuvering them all. Neither wolves nor unicorns really wanted Stile to show his magic, and Nesa was dead set against it. Yet now all of them were on the defensive as long as he did not. And if he did perform magic, the lady won. She needed that magic to maintain the blue demesne, and she would, as Kurlgeir's bitch had pointed out, do anything necessary to accomplish that purpose. Again he thought, what a woman she was!
We have galloped here for the sake of a false adept, Clip demanded for the stallion. We have allowed the wish fancy of a dwarf mare to embarrass the herd.
Once again, Stile felt the heat rising. That word dwarf now applied to Nesa. Kurlgeir looked at Stile, uncertain now.
Friend, I believe in thee, in thy honor and thy power, but I cannot send my pack into battle on thy behalf without some token of thy status. Thou must be released from thine oath.
Stile looked helplessly at Nesa, who snorted emphatic negation. Stile could not blame her. His magic had accidentally sent her once to hell. Without magic, he would not be able to assume the role of the Blue Adept, so would not be tempted to leave her. He knew this was not entirely selfish on her part. She feared he would be corrupted by magic. Stile was not sure her fear was unfounded. The other adepts had certainly been corrupted to some degree, either by their magic or by the circumstances of being adept. Yellow had to commit the atrocity of animal slavery in order to secure her position with other adepts. Black had to go to extraordinary extremes to isolate himself. If these people did not do such things, they could be killed by others who were less scrupulous. To be adept was to be somewhat ruthless and somewhat paranoid. Could he, as Blue, withstand those pressures? The former Blue Adept seemed to have succeeded and had been murdered. A lesson there? Without magic, there is no need for battle, Stile said. Let the wolves and unicorns go home. Nesa and I will go our way. Yet he was not sure he could stay away from this castle or the Lady Blue. His destiny surely lay there, and until he understood the blue demesne completely, he had not really honored the Oracle's directive. To know himself, he had to know the Blue Adept. Now the stallion blew a medley of notes.
If thou art false, and caused this trouble for naught, needs must I slay thee.
Clip translated.
If thou art true, thou willst betray the mare who helped thee, and needs must I avenge her. Defend thyself in what manner thou canst. We shall have an end to this insult.
And the huge unicorn stepped toward Stile. Stile considered jumping onto the stallion's back and riding him, as he had the first time with Nasa. But Stile was in worse shape than he had been then, and the stallion was more than twice Nasa's mass. The chances of riding him were slim, but so were the chances of defeating him in honest combat, even had Stile had his rapier. Kurlgeir stepped between them.
What coward attacks the smallest of men, knowing that man to be unarmed and bound to use no magic?
The stallion's horns swung on the werewolf. The bitch shifted into wolf form and came at the stallion's offside, snarling. But Kurlgeir remained man form.
Dost thou challenge the pair of us, unicorn? That were more of a fair match.
The lesser male unicorn stepped forward, but so did the other werewolves. 2 for 1. Not so, Stile cried, perceiving needless mayhem in the making. This is my quarrel, foolish as it may be, not thine.
We're the bad knees, fatigue from a marathon run, separated ribs and a bruised hand. Against that monster?
Hulk inquired.
This is a job for your bodyguard. I dare say a karate chop at that base of that horn would set the animal back.
The stallion paused. He glanced at Kurlgeir and his bitch, then at Hulk. He snorted.
No one dares call the herd stallion coward, Clip said, but his proper quarrel is not with thee, werewolf, nor with the ogre. It is with the impostor. Let Stile confess he is no adept, and he will be spared, and the foolish mare chastened.
Yes, the Lady Blue agreed. It were indeed folly to fight because of an impostor. Such an easy solution. All parties agreed on the compromise, except for Nasa, who knew the truth, and Kurlgeir, who believed it, and Stile himself. I abhor the prospect of bloodshed here, but I will not confess to a lie, Stile said firmly.
Then show thy magic,
Clip said. Thou knowest mine oath. The stallion snorted. Nasa looked up, startled but adamant.
Release him of his vow,
Clip translated for Stile's benefit.
Now wait,
Stile cried. I will not tolerate coercion. You have no right. Kurlgeir raised a cautioning hand.
I hold no great affection for this horny brute,
he said, indicating the stallion.
But I must advise thee. He has the right friend. He is the herd stallion. Even as my pack obeys me, so must his herd, and every member of it obey him. So must it ever be in this frame.
The stallion snorted, again, imperatively. Slowly Nasa bowed her horn. She played one forlorn note.
Thou art released,
the werewolf said.
Now the challenge is fair. I may no longer interfere. Use thy magic to defend thyself. Adept.
Stile looked again at Nasa. She averted her gaze. Obviously, she had been overruled. She did not like it, but it was, as the werewolf had pointed out, legitimate. By the custom of this frame, Stile had been released. He could use his magic, and would have to, for the stallion was bringing his horn to bear, and there was no doubting his intent. And not one wolf would come to Stile's defense. To avoid magic now would be, in effect, to proclaim a lie, and that would not only cost Stile his life, it would shame those who had believed in him. He had to prove himself, for Kurlgeir's sake and Nesa's sake, as well as his own, even though that would give the lady the victory she had so cleverly schemed for. But Stile was unprepared. He had not formulated any devastating rhymes, and in this sudden pressure could think of none. His magic was diffuse, uncollected without music. In addition, he didn't really want to hurt the stallion, who seemed to be doing a competent job of managing his herd, with the exception of his treatment of Nesa. Why should anyone believe a man who claimed to be able to do magic, but never performed? Such a claimant should be put to the proof, and that was what the stallion was doing. Stile saw the Lady Blue watching him, a half-smile on her face. She had won. She had forced him to prove himself. He would either manifest as the Blue Adept, or die in the manner of an impostor on the horn of the stallion. Vindication or destruction. Beside her, Nesa remained with gaze downcast, the loser either way. "I am sorry, Nesa," Stile said. Stile brought out his harmonica. Now it was a weapon. He played an improvised melody. Immediately the magic formed. The stallion noted the aura and paused, uncertain what it was. The wolves and other unicorns looked too, as that intangible mass developed and loomed. Ears twitched nervously. Good. This gave him a chance to figure out an applicable verse. What he needed was protection, like that of a wall. Wall. What rhymed with wall? Ball, fall, hall, tall. Unicorn standing tall. Abruptly, the stallion charged. Stile jumped aside. He stopped playing his harmonica and cried in a sing-song. "Unicorn stallion, standing tall, form around this one a wall." Immediately, he knew he had not phrased it properly. He had technically asked the unicorn to form a wall around Stile, which was backward. But the image in his mind was a brick wall 2 meters high encircling the stallion. Make that 6 feet to align the measurements with the standard of this frame, and that was what formed. His music was the power, his words the catalyst, but his mind did the fundamental shaping. A shower of red bricks fell from nowhere, landing with uncanny precision in a circle around the stallion, now forming row on row, building the wall before their eyes. The stallion stood amazed, not daring to move lest he get struck by flying bricks, watching himself be penned. The pack and the herd watched with similar astonishment, frozen in place. Hulk's mouth hung open. He had not believed in magic, really, until this moment. Kurlgeir was smiling in slow, grim satisfaction, his faith vindicated. And the Lady Blue's surprise was the greatest of all. Only Nesa was not discomfited. She made an "I told thee so" snort and turned her posterior on Stile, showing that she still did not approve. But Stile was sure she did approve, secretly, whatever this might cost her. After a moment, Kurlgeir hitched himself up to sit on the just completed wall. He tapped it with his fingers, verifying its solidity, as he spoke to the unicorn inside.
"Thou desirest still to match thy prowess against the magic of the Blue Adept, here in the Blue Domain? Note that he spares thee, thou arrogant animal, only showing his power harmlessly. He could as easily have dropped these bricks on thy bone head. Is it not meet for thee to make apology for thy doubt?
The stallion glared at him in stony silence. He could readily have leaped out of the enclosure, but it was beneath his dignity to try. The issue was not his jumping ability, but Stile's magic, which had now been resolved. "Not the stallion's, but mine is the apology," the Lady Blue said. "I thought this man no adept. Now I know he is. To a fine detail, this performance is like unto that of my love. Yet—" All heads turned to her as she hesitated. Slowly, she worked it out. "My husband was murdered by an adept. Now an adept in the likeness of my love comes, yet I know my love is dead. This could therefore be an impostor, claiming to hail from another frame, but more likely an adept from this frame, using his magic to change his aspect so that none will suspect his true identity. The adept who murdered Blue." Now all heads turned to Stile, the gazes of wolves and unicorns alike turning uncertain and hostile. Stile realized with a chill that he had misjudged the nature of his challenge. His real opposition was not the stallion. It was the Lady Blue. She would not suffer even the suspicion of an impostor in these demean. Not any longer. Her first line of defense had been broken down. This was her second. The lady was dangerous. He could die by the sole power of her voiced suspicions. Nasa snorted indignantly. She was mad at Stile now, but she believed in him. Yet it was apparent that most of the others were in doubt again. The infernal logic of the lady. Yet how could he refute this new challenge? There was one other person who knew his identity, but that was the Yellow Adept. Best not to bring her into this. He would simply have to present his case and give them opportunity to verify it. "I am not the Blue Adept. I am his alternate self, from the other frame. Anyone who is able and willing to pass through the curtain and make inquiries can ascertain my existence there. I am like Blue in all things, but lack his experience in this world. I'm not an imposter, but neither am I this lady's husband. Call me the brother of Blue. I apologize to those of you who may have had misconceptions. It was not my intention to mislead you." It still felt funny using you in this frame, but it was the correct plural form. "Were I some other adept, I would have little reason to masquerade as Blue. I could set up mine own demesne of whatever color. My power of magic is real. Why should I pretend to have another form than my own?" The others seemed mollified, but not the Lady Blue. "I would expect a murdering adept to arrive prepared with a persuasive story, to come as a seeming savior, destroying the golem he himself had sent, to make himself appear legitimate, to emulate the form of magic that is Blue's. Why should he do this? I can think of two reasons to begin. First, this would tend to conceal the murder he committed. Second, he might covet the things that are Blue's." Kurlgeir turned to her, his brow wrinkling.
An adept of such power could create his own estate, as impressive as this, with less complications than this.
"Not quite," she said tightly. "What has this estate that a foreign adept might covet and not be able to duplicate?" The lady hesitated, her color rising, but she had to answer. "It is me. It is said by some that I am fair." Telling point.
Fair indeed,
Kurlgeir agreed.
motive enough. Yet if he honors the works of Blue and maintains the premises in good order, is this not what thou wishest?
To accept in these demean the one who murdered my love? She demanded, flashing. I will not yield this proud heritage to that. The false adept may destroy me with his magic, even as he destroyed my love, but never will he assume the mantle and privilege of Blue. Kurlgeir swiveled on the wall to face Stile.
I believe in thee, friend, but the lady has a point. The magic of adepts is beyond the fathoming of simple animals like ourselves. We can prove no necessary connection between Blue's alternate in Proton and thyself. That double could be dead also, and now a construct adapted by magic, emulating the mode of Blue when in truth the real power lies in some other mode. We can all be deceived, and until we are assured of thy validity.
Stile was baffled. If neither my likeness nor my magic can convince her, and she will not take my word.
If I may ask 2 questions,
Hulk put in tentatively. Stile laughed. We already have more questions and answers. Go ahead, throw thine in the ring.
For what was the Blue Adept noted, other than his appearance and magic?
His integrity, the lady said promptly. Never did he tell a lie or otherwise practice deceit. Ever in his whole life.
Never has this one told a lie,
Kurlgeir said. That remains to be demonstrated, she retorted. The werewolf shrugged.
Only time can demonstrate that quality. Was there nothing else subject to more immediate trial?
His riding, the lady said, brightening. In all Phaze, only he could ride better than I. His love for animals was so great, especially horses. She had to stop, for her emotion was choking her. To have the love of such a woman, Stile thought. Her husband was dead, but she still defended him with all her power. She was right. Another adept might well covet her, and not merely for her beauty, and be willing to go to extraordinary lengths to win her. Kurlgeir turned to Stile.
How well dost thou ride?
I can answer that,
Hulk said.
Stile is the finest rider on Proton. I doubt anyone in this frame either could match him on horseback.
The lady looked startled. This man can ride? Bareback on an untamed steed? I should be glad to put him to that test.
No,
Hulk said. She glanced at him, frowning. Thou goddest him, ogre, by preventing him from betraying incompetence on a steed.
I seek only to settle the issue properly,
Hulk said.
We have seen that careless application settles nothing, such as Stile's demonstration of magic. For all the effect it had, he might as well not have bothered. To put him to a riding test now, when he has been weakened and injured.
There is
that,
Kurlgeir agreed.
Yet the importance of this proof.
Which brings me to my second question,
Hulk said.
Is the issue really between Stile and the lady, or between the lady and the mare?
Lady and mare looked at each other, startled again.
He only speaks like an ogre. He only looks like an ogre,
Kurlgeir murmured appreciatively. Then to Stile.
He speaks sooth. Thy destiny must be settled by lady and mare. They are the two with claims on thee. If thou provest thou art the blue adept, one of them must needs suffer. This is what brought both wolves and unicorns here.
Stile did not like this, but the stallion hung from his enclave. Only the finest of riders could break the least of unicorns. Clip translated. This man conquered Nasa. We accept him as a blue adept. Stile was astonished at this abrupt change on the part of the stallion. How couldst thou know I really? We saw thee, Clip said. We rooted for her to throw thee, but we cannot claim she did. We recognize that whatever else thou art, or art not, thou art indeed the finest rider of thy kind. But had she turned into a firefly, she would then have admitted she could not conquer thee in her natural form. Clip said, It matters not now. No man ever rode like thee. The stallion resented that, but now that he knows that was the mark of blue. I didn't really do it by myself, Stile said, remembering something. I hummed, and that was magic, though I knew it not at the time. I used magic to stay on her. And unicorns are immune to magic, Clip said, except the magic of adepts. Another adept could have destroyed her, but never could he have ridden her. There is only one adept we know of who can ride at all, and that is blue. All this the stallion considered before accepting thee. But I do not accept thee, the lady flared. The unicorns could be in league with the false adept to foist an impostor on the blue demesne. My love was a horseman, never partial to unicorns, nor they to him, though he would treat them on occasion if they deigned to come to him. The mare could have allowed this impostor to ride. Clip reacted angrily, but Curlgeir interposed.
Didst ever thou hear it mooted, lady, that werewolves would collude with unicorns in aught?
Nay, she admitted, the two are natural enemies.
Then accept this word from this were. I have come to know this mare. She did not submit voluntarily, except in the sense that she refrained from using her own magic to destroy him. He conquered her physically, and then, when she saw what manner of man he was, the kind of man you describe as your lord, he conquered her emotionally. But first, he did ride.
Almost. I wish I could believe, the lady murmured, and Stile saw the agony of her decision. She was not against him. She merely had to be sure of him and dared not make an error. Then she stiffened. The mare could be easier to ride than other unicorns like to think, the lady sniffed. She is small and not of true unicorn color. She could have other deficiencies. Nasa stomped the ground with a forefoot, but did not otherwise protest this insult. She has no less spirit than any in this herd, Clip said evenly, speaking for himself now. And even were she deficient, she remains a unicorn, a breed apart from common horses. No one but this man could have ridden her. The lady looked at him defiantly. If he could ride an animal I could not, then would I believe.
Therefore thou hast but to ride Nasa,
Curlgeir pointed out to her.
Thou hast not the magic humming he had, but the mare remains tired from her long hard ride to reach this castle yestermorn. I ran with her all the way unburdened, and I felt the strain of that travel. And I am a wolf. So I judge the challenge equivalent. In that manner, thou canst prove Stile is no better rider than thee.
She can't ride the unicorn, Stile protested. But the lady was nodding, and so were the unicorns and werewolves. All were amenable to this trial, and thought it fair. Nasa, too, was glancing obliquely at the lady, quite ready to try her strength. I maintain that anything thou canst ride in thy health, I can ride in mine, the lady informed him. There was no comparison between my lord and other men. He could have ridden a unicorn, had he so chosen. The stallion snorted angrily, and Stile needed no translation. The unicorns did not believe any normal human being could ride one of them, involuntarily. They had reason. Stile himself had not guessed what a challenge Nasa would be, until he was committed. Lady, Stile said, do not put thyself to this ordeal. No one can ride Nasa. No one but thee? Her disdain was eloquent. Stile realized that it had to be. The issue had to be settled, and this was, by general consensus, a valid test. Any choice he, Stile, made between lady and mare would mean trouble, and it seemed he could not have both. If the lady and the unicorn settled it themselves, he would become the prize of the winner. Or would he? If the lady won, the blue demesne would fall, for there would be no accredited adept to maintain them, and the news would be out. If Nasa won, there would be no Lady Blue, for she would be dead, as he would have been dead had Nasa thrown him that first challenge ride. It was the way of the unicorn, the way of life and phase, and all of them knew it, including the lady. She was putting her life on the line. Either way, Stile lost. With all his magic power restored to him, he was helpless to affect the outcome, or to determine his own destiny. Beautiful irony. Know thyself, the oracle had said, without informing him what the knowledge would cost.
I know this be hard for thee, the werewolf said, even as it was for me to do what I had to do when I faced my sire. Yet thou must submit to the judgment of this lot. It is fair.
Fair, he thought incredulously. The outcome of this lot would be either death or a lie. The lines of animals were expanding, forming a tremendous ring, bounded by the castle on one side and the magic wall on the other. The unicorns formed a half circle, the werewolves another, complementing each other. Nasa stood in the center of the new ring, the lady beside her. Both were beautiful. Stile wished again that he could have both, and knew again that he could not. When he accepted the benefits of magic, he also had to accept its penalties. How blithely he had walked into this awful reckoning. If only he had not parked Nasa at the blue demesne when he returned to Proton. Yet perhaps this confrontation was inevitable. The lady made a dainty leap, despite her flowing gown, which was no riding habit. The moment she landed, Nasa took off. From a standing start to a full gallop in one bound, her 4 hooves flinging up circular divots. But the lady hung on. Nasa stopped, her feet churning up turf in parallel scrape lines. The lady stayed put. Nasa took off, sideways and backward. The lady's skirt flared, but the lady held on.
She does know how to ride,
Hulk remarked, impressed.
If I didn't know better, I'd swear that was you, Stile, in a dress. I watched you win bronco busting in the game.
Stile was glumly silent. The Lady Blue could indeed ride. Better than he had expected, but he knew she could not stay on the unicorn. When she fell, Nasa would kill her, if the fall itself did not. It was legitimate. It was expected. And what would he want with Nasa then? The unicorn performed a backflip, then a four-spoked cartwheel, then a series of one-beat hops, followed by a bounce on her back. The lady stayed on until the last moment, then jumped clear and back on when Nasa scrambled to her feet. Hulk was gaping.
What sort of animal is this? Those tricks are impossible.
There was a court snore next to Stile. He glanced and discovered the herd stallion beside him, front hooves comfortably crossed on the wall, eyes intent on the competition. Not bad moves, Clip translated from the far side. Nasa whirled and leaped, spinning about in air. The lady's slippers flew off and her gown flung out so violently it rent. A fragment of blue gauze drifted to the ground, but her hands were locked in the unicorn's mane, and she was not dislodged. Nasa did a sudden barrel roll on the ground. Again the lady jumped free, but a tattered hem of her garment was caught under the weight of the unicorn, trapping her. As the roll continued, the lady was squeezed by the tightening cloth. She ripped her own gown asunder and danced free, abruptly nude.
That is some figure of a woman,
Hulk breathed. Nasa started to rise. The lady grabbed her mane, and Nasa threw down her head on the ground, pinning the lady's streaming golden hair beneath it. The lady grabbed for the unicorn's ears, and Nasa lifted her head quickly. Human hands could really hurt tender equine ears when they had to. Stile had not gone for the ears during his challenge ride. It was not his way. The lady knew the tricks all right, but Nasa had the end of the lady's tresses clamped between her teeth now. The unicorn knew the tricks too. Human intelligence in equine form. Devastating. As the lady tried to mount again, Nasa yanked her off balance by the hair. Beautiful, Clip murmured. But the lady grasped her own hair with one hand and jammed her other fingers into Nasa's mouth where the bit would go on a horse. There was a separation there between the front teeth, used for ripping grass free of the ground, and the back teeth, used for chewing. Pressure in that gap could cause pain. Nasa's mouth opened under that expert inducement, and the lady's hair was free. Then, as Nasa leaped away, the lady sprang to her back again. Nasa ran, but now the lady was free of the liability of clothing, and had a more secure lodging than before.
She's winning,
Hulk said, obviously rooting for the lady, forgetting in the excitement what this would mean to Stile. Stile began to wonder, was it possible that the Lady Blue could ride Nasa? She was, next to himself, the most expert rider he had seen. The stallion made an irate snort.
What's the matter with that mare? Clip said. She should have wiped out the rider by this time.
She is torn by indecision, Curlgeyer said. If Nasa loses, she proves the lady's belief that Stile is false. If Nasa wins, she vindicates him as the blue adept she wants him not to be. Would I could take that choice from her.
Stile kept his eyes forward, but felt a shiver. The werewolf had his bitch in the pack, even as Stile had Sheen and Proton. But Curlgeyer obviously had developed a separate interest that cut across the lines of species, even as Stile had. Yet who could know Nasa and not like her and respect her? Yes, Stile agreed. He saw no acceptable outcome for this contest. Whoever lost took away a major part of his own commitment. Nasa was his friend. The lady represented his heritage. Which one was he to choose? Which one was fate about to choose for him? To choose and eliminate simultaneously. In the future, I will manage my destiny myself, Stile muttered, and heard, to his surprise, a snort of agreement from the stallion. Nasa galloped so fast that her mane and the lady's hair flew out behind, the black and gold almost merging. Shadow and sunlight. She made turns that struck sparks from the rocks on the ground. She bucked and reared, but the lady remained mounted. Now the unicorn charged the castle. She hurdled the small moat with a magnificent leap, landed on her forefeet, and did her forward flip into the wall. There were growls of amazement from the wolves, and even an appreciative snort from the stallion. Nasa was really trying now. But the lady had been smart enough to disengage in time. When the unicorn's hind feet returned to the ground, the lady was on again. They hurdled the moat, outward bound, and charged across the arena toward the magic brick wall. Now Stile saw the fire jetting from Nasa's nostrils and the bellows heaving of her barrel as she put forth her critical effort. The lady was almost hidden as she rode low, her head down beside Nasa's neck. Stile watched in growing disquiet as the unicorn's horn bore on the wall. Stile was directly in its path. He saw the horn endwise, as a compressed spiral on Nasa's forehead, coming at him like the point of a rotary drill. Her eyes were wide and turning bloodshot, and her flaring nostrils were rimmed with red. Nasa was near her limit, and still the lady clung fast. Stile felt mixed relief for the lady, sorrow for the unicorn, and apprehension for himself. He was at the focus of this agony. Then Nasa swerved aside, kicking up her rear. Her flank smashed into the wall, knocking loose the top row of bricks and breaking the mortar seal on several lower courses. She rebounded, getting her footing, breathing fire, and the lady was clinging to her side, away from the wall. Otherwise, the lady's leg would have been crushed, and Stile himself might have been struck, as he had been too absorbed in the charge to move out of the way. Only the curvature of the wall and Nasa's swerve had spared him. Stile caught a glimpse of the lady's neck, shoulder, and breast, behind one blood-streaked arm. Then steed and rider were away, prancing to the center of the arena. The stallion shook a brick off his back. Neither he nor Curlgeyer had flinched either. All three of them were powdered with reddish brick dust, and some of that red was sticky. Whose blood was it?
They're playing for keeps,
Hulk murmured, awed.
It is the way in Phaze,
Curlgeyer assured him. But now Nasa was tiring. She had extended herself for a day and a night to bring Stile here, and the intervening day had not been enough to restore her to full vitality. Her maneuvers were becoming less extreme. Her brush-off pitch against the wall had been her last fling. The lady's head lifted, her gaze triumphant, and at the same time, her mouth was sad. Had she, in her secret heart, wanted Stile to be vindicated, though it cost her her life? What kind of existence did this indomitable woman face with her husband gone, and her vulnerability now known to the world? Had she lost, she would have been dead, but would have died with the knowledge that the Blue Demesne would survive. Then, desperately, without real hope, Nasa experimented with alternate gates. The 1, 2, 3, and 4 beat gates gave the lady no trouble, but evidently she had not before encountered the unicorn specialty of the 5 beat. Immediately, Nasa felt the uncertainty in her rider. She picked up the pace, exaggerating the peculiar step, Her strength returned for this last fling.
What is that?
Hulk asked, amazed. The stallion snorted with satisfaction. That is the unicorn strut, Clip answered. We use it mostly in special harmonies for counterpoint cadence. We had no idea she could do it so well. Suddenly the tables had been turned. The lady clung to the mare, but her body bounced about with increasing roughness, unable to accommodate this unfamiliar motion. Stile knew exactly how it felt. Riding was not simply a matter of holding on. The rider had to make constant adjustments of balance and position, most of them automatic, based on ingrained experience. A completely unfamiliar gait made these automatic corrections only aggravate the problem. Stile himself had analyzed the gait in time, but one of the Lady Blue's hands tore away from the mane. Her body slid half off. One good lunge now, and Nasa would dump her.
Kill her,
Clip breathed. Abruptly, Nasa halted. The lady recovered her grip, hung on for a moment, then released the mane and slid to the ground. The ride was over.
The little fool, Clip exclaimed. She had the win. Why didn't she finish it?
And the stallion snorted in deep disgust.
She has forfeited her place in the herd,
Kurlgeir said sadly.
In thy parlance, she threw the game.
Stile jumped off the wall and walked toward the lady and unicorn, who both stood as if frozen, facing away from each other. As he walked, understanding came to him. Stile played his harmonica as he worked it out, gathering the magic to him. Nasa, after the specter of defeat, had had the victory in range. But Nasa wanted Stile's welfare more than she wanted her own. She had finally, unwillingly, recognized the fact that he could fulfill his destiny only as the Blue Adept, complete with magic. Once she had proven that he alone could ride the unicorn, what could she gain by killing or even humbling the lady who was his natural mate? Nasa had ceded him to the lady so that he could have it all, knowing himself and his demeanor exactly as the oracle had decreed. She had understood that he was already half smitten with his alternate's wife, and understood further that the Lady Blue was indeed worthy of him. Nasa had sacrificed her own love for Stile's. She had shown the one person she had to, the Lady Blue, that Stile was no imposter. Wolves and unicorns could doubt it if they wished, but the lady could not, for Stile had mastered the unicorn strut without being thrown. He really was the better rider. That was Nasa's gift to Stile, and he had to accept it. Nasa was his ultimate steed, but the lady was his ultimate woman. He hardly knew her yet, but he knew his other self would have chosen wisely, and everything he had observed so far confirmed this. He also knew his alternate self of Phaze would have wanted Stile to take over, for the Blue Adept was him in other guise. The Lady Blue, however, was not yet his woman. Stile had merely qualified for the turning, in this sense, and had won the right to court her. He would have to prove himself in other ways in magical and in writing ability, showing that he was worthy of her love. He would have to demonstrate convincingly to her that he was as good as her husband had been. Perhaps he would not succeed, for she was so steadfastly loyal to her first love that a second love might be impossible. But in the interim, he knew she would accept him as the master of the Blue Domain and support him publicly as she had the Golem, for the sake of the reputation and works of Blue. That was all he had a right to expect. It was, for the moment, more than enough. It was Nasa he had to deal with, she who had made it all possible, and now would go, excluded from the herd, departing in shame to fling herself off the same cliff where they had first come to terms. She had lived always with the hope that eventually the herd stallion would relent and allow her full membership in the herd. He would have, had she destroyed the lady in approved fashion. But for a creature who yielded a draw in a contest she could have won, shaming the vanity of the herd, there would be no forgiveness. The rigors of species pride were harsh. Stile had, in the naivete of his conscience, turned Nasa loose when he had conquered her, making a sacrifice no other man would have, and won a better friend than he had known. Now, she had returned the favor. Stile's head turned as he walked, his gaze passing over the unicorns and werewolves. All were somber, watching him, knowing what had to be, knowing this was his parting with his most loyal friend. They felt sympathy for him, and for the mare, and it was a minor tragedy, but this was the way of it, in Phaze. Damn it, he thought. He was not truly of this world, and this proved it. He had been raised to a different order of integrity, where blood sacrifices were not required. How could he tolerate this senseless loss? Yet he knew it was not senseless. Here, the laws of this society were harsh, but valid. The magic gathered close as he played. The strange cloud of it spread about him, and, as he approached, about the lady and the unicorn. But what good was magic in an ethical dilemma? What spell could he make to eliminate the need for what he knew had to be? Stile came to stand before Nasa, playing the music that had been inspired by the sound of her horn. Her body was heaving with the recent extremity of her effort. Her mane was disheveled, with dry leaves in it, and several strands hanging over the left side. There were flecks of blood on her back. She must have scratched herself when she did the back smash against the castle wall. He wished he could make a little spell to heal it for her, but knew this was not proper now. Her gaze met his, dully. She was waiting only for him to bid her farewell. Farewell? What irony! It was death he would bid her. This reminded Stile obscurely of his race in the marathon, in the other frame. He had been almost dead on his feet, as Nasa was now, but he had won, as she had, and then tried to give it back to an opponent he respected. Again, he had made a friend. Surely he could salvage his relationship with Nasa, if only he had the wit to find the way. What had the werewolf said about oaths? They superseded all relationships, conflicting with none, not even the male-female ones. Kurlgeir's oath friend could do no wrong by Kurlgeir's bitch. The oath made that irrelevant. The marathon, the oath. What had passed through his mind when... And he had it. Stile set the harmonica aside. With the magic intense about him, he sang with impromptu melody. My name is Stile, called the Blue Adept. Standing before thee, I proffer mine oath. To the unicorn Nasa, companion and steed, friendship forever, uniting us both. For an instant, it was as if a dense cloud had darkened the sun. A sudden, odd, in-sweeping breeze rustled the distant trees and fluttered the blue pennants on the castle and stirred the manes and hackles of the animals. Nasa's eyes widened. Her ears switched back and forth as comprehension came. She phased into girl form, equine form, firefly form, and back to unicorn, entirely nonplussed. The ripple of enchantment imploded about the two of them in soft heat, then rebounded outward in a circle. The turf changed color, passing through the hues of the rainbow and back to normal in a swiftly expanding ring. The ripple intersected the naked lady, whose tangled hair scintillated momentarily, and went on, leaving that hair smoothly brushed. The lady turned. "Only perfect truth makes such splash," she murmured. "Only my lord had such power of magic." Stile spread his arms. Nasa, overwhelmed, stepped forward, her horn lifted clear. Stile reached around her neck and chest and hugged her. "Never leave me, oath friend," he murmured. He heard her low whinny of assent and felt her velvet nuzzle at his shoulder. Then he disengaged and stepped back. The Lady Blue came forward. She put her arms around Nasa. "Never again be there strife between us," she said, tears in her eyes. Nasa made a tiny snort of acceptance. Now the wolves and unicorns came in, forming a ragged line, heedless of the mixing of species. In turn, each wolf sniffed noses with Nasa, and each unicorn crossed horns, and went on. All of them were joining in the oath of friendship. Even her brother Clip came, and Curlgeyer, and Hulk. Nasa accepted them all. It was, Stile knew, the power of his spell. When he had phrased his oath in verse and music, he had performed magic, and wrought a greater enchantment than he had anticipated. The spell he had envisioned, though not completed in words, had flung outward to embrace the entire circle of creatures, compelling them all to share Stile's feeling. Nasa would not now be banned from the herd or from the pack. She was friend to all. But she would remain with Stile, having accepted his power with his oath. Only the herd stallion stood apart. He alone had resisted the compulsion of the enchantment. He did not interfere. He waited within his enclosure until the ceremony was over. Then he blew a great summoning blast of music and leaped over the wall. It had never truly restrained him. It had merely been the proof of the power of the Blue Adept, whose power could as readily have been turned to a more destructive manifestation. Once the herd stallion had seen Stile was no imposter, his objection had ended. Now the unicorns rallied to him, galloping to form their formation. Playing as a mighty orchestra, they marched away. Curlgeyer shifted to wolf form and bade his own summons. His faith had also been vindicated, and his bitch had been satisfied. The wolves closed in about him, and the pack loped away in the opposite direction. In a moment, only Stile, Nasa, the Lady Blue, and Hulk remained by the blue demesne. Stile turned to the woman he would now be dealing with. Nothing was settled, either with her or with his anonymous murderer, or in the other frame. But it was a beginning. "Lady, wilt thou ride my steed?" he asked. There was no need to ask Nasa. As a friend, she would do anything for him, and he for her. By the phrasing of his invitation, he was acknowledging that he had as yet only a partial claim on the lady, and could not take her for granted. She was a challenge, not a friend. The Lady Blue inclined her head, as regal in her nakedness as she had been in the gown. Lightly she mounted Nasa. Stile walked on one side, Hulk on the other. Together they approached the open castle. And that is the end of Split Infinity. I hope you guys all enjoyed the reading of this book. I will get these chapters posted up to YouTube this evening, so they should be available as of tomorrow. So the entire book will be available on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/@SirArminius, for your listening pleasure. Next week, I will plan on my normal night of Tuesday to start book 2 of the series, Blue Adept. I hope you guys will come along to join me. As always, if you have enjoyed these, make sure you like, subscribe, comment, follow, whatever it happens to be on whatever platform that you're on. I appreciate the support. I hope you guys all have yourselves a wonderful evening, and I look forward to seeing you guys all again really soon. Thank you, Aelos, Joy in general. I appreciate the both of you for being here with me, and everyone else out there who's been a little bit more silent. Thank you all. Have a great night.